"You are saved," cried Captain Delano, more and more astonished and pained. "You are saved. What has cast such a shadow upon you? Herman Melville, Benito Sereno. Harry, I tell you, it is not me you are looking at, not me you are grinning at, not me your confidential looks incriminate, but that other person, if person you thought I was. Let your necrophilia feed upon that carcass." T.S. Eliot, Family Reunion. Prologue. I am an invisible man. No, I am not a spook like those who haunted Edgar Allan Poe, nor am I one of your Hollywood movie ectoplasms. I am a man of substance, of flesh and bone, fiber and liquids, and I might even be said to possess a mind. I am invisible, understand, simply because people refuse to see me. Like the bodiless heads you see sometimes in circus sideshows, it is as though I have been surrounded by mirrors of hard, distorting glass. When they approach me, they see only my surroundings, themselves, or figments of their imagination, indeed, everything and anything except me. Nor is my invisibility exactly a matter of a biochemical accident to my epidermis. That invisibility to which I refer occurs because of a peculiar disposition of the eyes of those with whom I come in contact, a matter of the construction of their inner eyes, those eyes with which they look through their physical eyes upon reality. I am not complaining, nor am I protesting either. It is sometimes advantageous to be unseen, although it is most often rather wearing on the nerves. Then, too, you're constantly being bumped against by those of poor vision, or again you often doubt if you really exist. You wonder whether you aren't simply a phantom in other people's minds, say, a figure in a nightmare which the sleeper tries with all his strength to destroy. It's when you feel like this that out of resentment you begin to bump people back. And let me confess, you feel that way most of the time. You ache with the need to convince yourself that you do exist in the real world, that you're a part of all the sound and anguish, and you strike out. With your fists, you curse and you swear to make them recognize you. And, alas, it's seldom successful. One night I accidentally bumped into a man, and perhaps because of the near darkness he saw me and called me an insulting name. I sprang at him, seized his coat lapels, and demanded that he apologize. He was a tall, blond man, and as my face came close to his, he looked insolently out of his blue eyes and cursed me, his breath hot in my face as he struggled. I pulled his chin down sharp upon the crown of my head, butting him as I had seen the West Indians do, and I felt his flesh tear and the blood gush out, and I yelled, "Apologize, apologize!" But he continued to curse and struggle, and I butted him again and again until he went down heavily on his knees, profusely bleeding. I kicked him repeatedly, in a frenzy, because he still uttered insults though his lips were frothy with blood. Oh yes, I kicked him, and in my outrage I got out my knife and prepared to slit his throat right there beneath the lamplight in the deserted street, holding him by the collar with one hand and opening the knife with my teeth, when it occurred to me that the man had not seen me actually, that he, as far as he knew, was in the midst of a walking nightmare. And I stopped the blade, slicing the air, as I pushed him away, letting him fall back to the street. I stared at him, hard as the lights of a car stabbed through the darkness. He lay there, moaning on the asphalt, a man almost killed by a phantom. It unnerved me. I was both disgusted and ashamed. I was like a drunken man myself, wavering about on weakened legs. Then I was amused. Something in this man's thick head had sprung out and beaten him within an inch of his life. I began to laugh at this crazy discovery. Would he have awakened at the point of death? Would death himself have freed him for wakeful living? But I didn't linger. I ran away into the dark, laughing so hard I feared I might rupture myself. The next day I saw his picture in the Daily News beneath a caption stating that he had been mugged. Poor fool, poor blind fool, I thought with sincere compassion, mugged by an invisible man. Most of the time, although I do not choose as I once did to deny the violence of my days by ignoring it, I am not so overtly violent. I remember that I am invisible and walk softly so as not to awaken the sleeping ones. Now, aware of my invisibility, I live rent-free in a building rented strictly to whites, in a section of the basement that was shut off and forgotten during the 19th century, which I discovered when I was trying to escape in the night from Ras the Destroyer. But that's getting too far ahead of the story, almost to the end, although the end is in the beginning and lies far ahead. The point now is that I found a home, or a hole in the ground, as you will. Now don't jump to the conclusion that because I call my home a hole it is damp and cold like a grave. There are cold holes and warm holes. Mine is a warm hole. And remember, a bear retires to his hole for the winter, and lives until spring, then he comes strolling out like the Easter chick, breaking from its shell. I say all this to assure you that it is incorrect to assume that because I'm invisible and live in a hole, I am dead. I am neither dead nor in a state of suspended animation. Call me Jack the Bear, for I am in a state of hibernation. My hole is warm and full of light. Yes, full of light. I doubt if there is a brighter spot in all New York than this hole of mine, and I do not exclude Broadway, or the Empire State Building on a photographer's dream night. But that is taking advantage of you. Those two spots are among the darkest of our whole civilization. Pardon me, our whole culture, an important distinction I've heard, which might sound like a hoax or a contradiction, but that, by contradiction I mean, is how the world moves, not like an arrow, but a boomerang. Beware of those who speak of the spiral of history. They are preparing a boomerang. Keep a steel helmet handy. I know I have been boomeranged across my head so much that I now can see the darkness of lightness, and I love light. Perhaps you'll think it strange that an invisible man should need light, desire light, love light. But maybe it is exactly because I am invisible. Light confirms my reality, gives birth to my form. A beautiful girl once told me of a recurring nightmare in which she lay in the center of a large dark room and felt her face expand until it filled the whole room, becoming a formless mass while her eyes ran in bilious jelly up the chimney. And so it is with me. Without light I am not only invisible but formless as well, and to be unaware of one's form is to live a death. And maybe I'll invent a gadget to place my coffee pot on the fire while I lie in bed, and even invent a gadget to warm my bed, like the fellow I saw in one of the picture magazines who made himself a gadget to warm his shoes. Though invisible, I am in the great American tradition of tinkers. That makes me kin to Ford, Edison, and Franklin. Call me, since I have a theory and a concept, a thinker-tinker. Yes, I'll warm my shoes. They need it. They're usually full of holes. I'll do that and more. Now I have one radio phonograph. I plan to have 5. There is a certain acoustical deadness in my hole, and when I have music I want to feel its vibration, not only with my ear but with my whole body. I'd like to hear 5 recordings of Louis Armstrong playing and singing "What Did I Do to Be So Black and Blue" all at the same time. Sometimes now I listen to Louis while I have my favorite dessert of vanilla ice cream and sloe gin. I pour the red liquid over the white mound, watching it glisten and the vapor rising as Louis bends that military instrument into a beam of lyrical sound. Perhaps I like Louis Armstrong because he's made poetry out of being invisible. I think it must be because he's unaware that he is invisible, and my own grasp of invisibility aids me to understand his music. Once when I asked for a cigarette. Some jokers gave me a reefer, which I lighted when I got home and sat listening to my phonograph. It was a strange evening. Invisibility, let me explain, gives one a slightly different sense of time. You're never quite on the beat. Sometimes you're ahead and sometimes behind. Instead of the swift and imperceptible flowing of time, you are aware of its nodes, those points where time stands still or from which it leaps ahead, and you slip into the breaks and look around. That's what you hear vaguely in Lewis's music. Once I saw a prize fighter boxing a yokel. The fighter was swift and amazingly scientific. His body was one violent flow of rapid rhythmic action. He hit the yokel 100 times while the yokel held up his arms in stunned surprise. But suddenly the yokel, rolling about in the gale of boxing gloves, struck one blow and knocked science, speed and footwork as cold as a well-digger's posterior. The smart money hit the canvas. The long shot got the nod. The yokel had simply stepped inside of his opponent's sense of time. So, under the spell of the reefer, I discovered a new analytical way of listening to music. The unheard sounds came through, and each melodic line existed of itself, stood out clearly from all the rest, said its piece, and waited patiently for the other voices to speak. That night I found myself hearing not only in time but in space as well. I not only entered the music but descended like Dante into its depths. And beneath the swiftness of the hot tempo there was a slower tempo and a cave, and I entered it and looked around and heard an old woman singing a spiritual as full of Weltschmerz as flamenco. And beneath that lay a still lower level on which I saw a beautiful girl the color of ivory pleading in a voice like my mother's as she stood before a group of slave owners who bid for her naked body. And below that I found a lower level and a more rapid tempo, and I heard someone shout, "Brothers and sisters, my text this morning is the blackness of blackness." And a congregation of voices answered that blackness is most black, brother, most black. In the beginning, at the very start, they cried. There was blackness, preach it, and the sun, Lord, was bloody red, red. Now black is, the preacher shouted, bloody. I said black is, preach it, brother, and black ain't. Red, Lord, red, he said it's red. Amen, brother. Black will get you. Yes, it will. And black won't, nor it won't. It do, Lord. And it don't, hallelujah. It'll put you, glory, glory, oh my Lord, in the whale's belly. Preach it, dear brother, and make you tempt. Good God Almighty, old Aunt Nellie, black will make you black, or black will unmake you. Ain't it the truth, Lord? And at that point a voice of trombone timbre screamed at me, "Get out of here, you fool! Is you ready to commit treason?" And I tore myself away, hearing the old singer of spirituals moaning, "Go curse your God, boy, and die." I stopped and questioned her, asked her what was wrong. "I dearly loved my master, son," she said. "You should have hated him," I said. "He gave me several sons," she said, "and because I loved my sons I learned to love their father, though I hated him too. I too have become acquainted with ambivalence," I said. "That's why I'm here." "What's that?" "Nothing, a word that doesn't explain it." "Why do you moan?" "I moan this way 'cause he's dead," she said. "Then tell me, who is that laughing upstairs?" "Them's my sons. They glad." "Yes, I can understand that too," I said. "I laughs too, but I moans too. He promised to set us free, but he never could bring himself to do it. Still I loved him. Loved him." "You mean, oh yes, but one loved something else even more." "What more?" "Freedom." "Freedom," I said. "Maybe freedom lies in hating." "No, son, it's in loving. I loved him and give him the poison, and he withered away like a frostbit apple. Them boys would have tore him to pieces, with they homemade knives. A mistake was made somewhere, I said. I'm confused. And I wished to say other things, but the laughter upstairs became too loud and moan-like for me, and I tried to break out of it, but I couldn't. Just as I was leaving, I felt an urgent desire to ask her what freedom was, and went back. She sat with her head in her hands, moaning softly. Her leather-brown face was filled with sadness. "Old woman, what is this freedom you love so well?" I asked around, a corner of my mind. She looked surprised, then thoughtful, then baffled. "I done forgot, son. It's all mixed up. First I think it's one thing, then I think it's another. It gets my head to spinning. I guess now it ain't nothing but knowing how to say what I got up in my head. But it's a hard job, son. Too much is done. Happened to me in too short a time. It's like I have a fever. Every time I starts to walk, my head gets to swirling and I falls down. Or if it ain't that, it's the boys. They gets to laughing and wants to kill up the white folks. They's bitter, that's what they is. But what about freedom? Leave me lone, boy, my head aches." I left her, feeling dizzy myself. I didn't get far. Suddenly one of the sons, a big fellow 6 feet tall, appeared out of nowhere and struck me with his fist. "What's the matter, man?" I cried. "You made Ma cry." "But how?" I said, dodging a blow. "Asking her them questions, that's how. Get out of here and stay, and next time you got questions like that, ask yourself." He held me in a grip like cold stone, his fingers fastening upon my windpipe until I thought I would suffocate before he finally allowed me to go. I stumbled about dazed, the music beating hysterically in my ears. It was dark. My head cleared and I wandered down a dark, narrow passage, thinking. I heard his footsteps hurrying behind me. I was sore, and into my being had come a profound craving for tranquility, for peace and quiet, a state I felt I could never achieve. For one thing, the trumpet was blaring and the rhythm was too hectic. A tom-tom beating like heart thuds began drowning out the trumpet, filling my ears. I longed for water, and I heard it rushing through the cold manes my fingers touched as I felt my way, but I couldn't stop to search because of the footsteps behind me. "Hey, Ras," I called. "Is it you, Destroyer? Reinhardt?" No answer, only the rhythmic footsteps behind me. Once I tried crossing the road, but a speeding machine struck me, scraping the skin from my leg as it roared past. Then somehow I came out of it, ascending hastily from this underworld of sound to hear Louis Armstrong innocently asking, "What did I do to be so black and blue?" At first I was afraid. This familiar music had demanded action, the kind of which I was incapable, and yet had I lingered there beneath the surface I might have attempted to act. Nevertheless, I know now that few really listen to this music. I sat on the chair's edge in a soaking sweat, as though each of my 1,369 bulbs had everyone become a Klieg light in an individual setting for a 3rd degree with Ras and Reinhardt in charge. It was exhausting, as though I had held my breath continuously for an hour under the terrifying serenity that comes from days of intense hunger. And yet it was a strangely satisfying experience for an invisible man to hear the silence of sound. I had discovered unrecognized compulsions of my being, even though I could not answer yes to their promptings. I haven't smoked a reefer since, however, not because they're illegal, but because to see around corners is enough. That is not unusual when you are invisible, but to hear around them is too much. It inhibits action. Could this compulsion to put invisibility down in black and white be thus an urge to make music of invisibility? But I am an orator, a rabble rouser. I was, and perhaps shall be again. Who knows? All sickness is not unto death, neither is invisibility. I can hear you say, "What a horrible, irresponsible bastard," and you're right. I leap to agree with you. I am one of the most irresponsible beings that ever lived. Irresponsibility is part of my invisibility. Any way you face it, it is a denial. But to whom can I be responsible, and why should I be when you refuse to see me? And wait until I reveal how truly irresponsible I am. Responsibility rests upon recognition, and recognition is a form of agreement. Take the man whom I almost killed, who was responsible for that near murder. I don't think so, and I refuse it. I won't buy it. You can't give it to me. He bumped me, he insulted me. Shouldn't he, for his own personal safety, have recognized my hysteria, my danger potential? He, let us say, was lost in a dream world. But didn't he control that dream world, which, alas, is only too real? And didn't he rule me out of it? And if he had yelled for a policeman, wouldn't I have been taken for the offending one? Yes, let me agree with you. I was the irresponsible one, for I should have used my knife to protect the higher interests of society. Some day that kind of foolishness will cause us tragic trouble. All dreamers and sleepwalkers must pay the price, and even the invisible victim is responsible for the fate of all. But I shirked that responsibility. I became too snarled in the incompatible notions that buzzed within my brain. I was a coward. But what did I do to be so blue? Bear with me. Chapter 1. It goes a long way back, some 20 years. All my life I had been looking for something, and everywhere I turned someone tried to tell me what it was. I accepted their answers too, though they were often in contradiction and even self-contradictory. I was I was looking for myself, and asking everyone except myself questions which I, and only I, could answer. It took me a long time and much painful boomeranging of my expectations to achieve a realization everyone else appears to have been born with, that I am nobody but myself. But first I had to discover that I am an invisible man. And yet I am no freak of nature, nor of history. I was in the cards, other things having been equal or unequal 85 years ago. I am not ashamed of my grandparents for having been slaves. I am only ashamed of myself for having at one time been ashamed. About 85 years ago they were told that they were free, united with others of our country in everything pertaining to the common good, and in everything social, separate like the fingers of the hand. And they believed it. They exulted in it. They stayed in their place, worked hard, and brought up my father to do the same. But my grandfather is the one. He was an odd old guy, my grandfather, and I am told I take after him. It was he who caused the trouble. On his deathbed he called my father to him and said, "Son, after I'm gone I want you to keep up the good fight. I never told you, but our life is a war, and I have been a traitor all my born days, a spy in the enemy's country ever since I give up my gun back in the Reconstruction. Live with your head in the lion's mouth. I want you to overcome 'em with yeses, undermine 'em with grins, agree 'em to death and destruction, let 'em swallow you till they vomit or bust wide open." They thought the old man had gone out of his mind. He had been the meekest of men. The younger children were rushed from the room, the shades drawn, and the flame of the lamp turned so low that it sputtered on the wick like the old man's breathing. "Learn it to the young uns," he whispered fiercely, then he died. But my folks were more alarmed over his last words than over his dying. It was as though he had not died at all. His words caused so much anxiety. I was warned emphatically to forget what he had said, and indeed, this is the first time it has been mentioned outside the family circle. It had a tremendous effect upon me, however. I could never be sure of what he meant. Grandfather had been a quiet old man who never made any trouble, yet on his deathbed he had called himself a traitor and a spy, and he had spoken of his meekness as a dangerous activity. It became a constant puzzle. which lay unanswered in the back of my mind. And whenever things went, well, for me, I remembered my grandfather and felt guilty and uncomfortable. It was as though I was carrying out his advice in spite of myself, and to make it worse, everyone loved me for it. I was praised by the most lily-white men of the town. I was considered an example of desirable conduct, just as my grandfather had been, and what puzzled me was that the old man had defined it as treachery. When I was praised for my conduct, I felt a guilt that in some way I was doing something that was really against the wishes of the white folks, that if they had understood they would have desired me to act just the opposite, that I should have been sulky and mean, and that really would have been what they wanted, even though they were fooled and thought they wanted me to act as I did. It made me afraid that someday they would look upon me as a traitor and I would be lost. Still, I was more afraid to act any other way because they didn't like that at all. The old man's words were like a curse. On my graduation day, I delivered an oration in which I showed that humility was the secret, indeed, the very essence of progress. Not that I believed this, how could I, remembering my grandfather? I only believed that it worked. It was a great success. Everyone praised me, and I was invited to give the speech at a gathering of the town's leading white citizens. It was a triumph for our whole community. It was in the main ballroom of the leading hotel. When I got there, I discovered that it was on the occasion of a smoker, and I was told that since I was to be there anyway, I might as well take part in the battle royal to be fought by some of my schoolmates as part of the entertainment. The battle royal came first. All of the town's big shots were there in their tuxedos, wolfing down the buffet foods, drinking beer and whiskey and smoking black cigars. It was a large room with a high ceiling. Chairs were arranged in neat rows around 3 sides of a portable boxing ring. The 4th side was clear, revealing a gleaming space of polished floor. I had some misgivings over the battle royal, by the way, not from a distaste for fighting, but because I didn't care too much for the other fellows who were to take part. They were tough guys who seemed to have no grandfather's curse worrying their minds. No one could mistake their toughness, and besides, I suspected that fighting a battle royal might detract from the dignity of my speech. In those pre-invisible days, I visualized myself as a potential Booker T. Washington. But the other fellows didn't care too much for me either, and there were 9 of them. I felt superior to them in my way, and I didn't like the manner in which we were all crowded together into the servants' elevator. Nor did they like my being there. In fact, as the warmly lighted floors flashed past the elevator, we had words over the fact that I, by taking part in the fight, had knocked one of their friends out of a night's work. We were led out of the elevator through a rococo hall into an anteroom and told to get into our fighting togs. Each of us was issued a pair of boxing gloves and ushered out into the big mirrored hall, which we entered looking cautiously about us and whispering, lest we might accidentally be heard above the noise of the room. It was foggy with cigar smoke, and already the whiskey was taking effect. I was shocked to see some of the most important men of the town quite tipsy. They were all there, bankers, lawyers, judges, doctors, fire chiefs, teachers, merchants, even one of the more fashionable pastors. Something we could not see was going on up front. A clarinet was vibrating sensuously, and the men were standing up and moving eagerly forward. We were a small, tight group, clustered together, our bare upper bodies touching and shining with anticipatory sweat, while up front the big shots were becoming increasingly excited over something we still could not see. Suddenly I heard the school superintendent, who had told me to come, yell, "Bring up the shines, gentlemen! Bring up the little shines!" We were rushed up to the front of the ballroom, where it smelled even more strongly of tobacco and whiskey. Then we were pushed into place. I almost wet my pants. A sea of faces, some hostile, some amused, ringed around us, and in the center facing us stood a magnificent blonde, stark, naked. There was dead silence. I felt a blast of cold air chill me. I tried to back away, but they were behind me and around me. Some of the boys stood with lowered heads, trembling. I felt a wave of irrational guilt and fear. My teeth chattered, my skin turned to goose flesh, my knees knocked. Yet I was strongly attracted and looked in spite of myself. Had the price of looking been blindness, I would have looked. The hair was yellow like that of a circus, Cupid doll, the face heavily powdered and rouged, as though to form an abstract mask, the eyes hollow and smeared a cool blue, the color of a baboon's butt. I felt a desire to spit upon her as my eyes brushed slowly over her body. Her breasts were firm and round as the domes of East Indian temples, and I stood so close as to see the fine skin texture and beads of pearly perspiration glistening like dew around the pink and erected buds of her nipples. I wanted at one and the same time to run from the room, to sink through the floor, or go to her and cover her from my eyes and the eyes of the others with my body, to feel the soft thighs, to caress her and destroy her, to love her and murder her, to hide from her, and yet to stroke, where below the small American flag tattooed upon her belly, her thighs, formed a capital fifth. I had a notion that of all in the room she saw only me with her impersonal eyes. And then she began to dance, a slow, sensuous movement, the smoke of 100 cigars clinging to her like the thinnest of veils. She seemed like a fair bird girl girdled in veils calling to me from the angry surface of some grey and threatening sea. I was transported. Then I became aware of the clarinet playing and the big shots yelling at us. Some threatened us if we looked and others if we did not. On my right I saw one boy faint, and now a man grabbed a silver pitcher from a table and stepped close as he dashed ice water upon him and stood him up and forced two of us to support him, as his head hung and moans issued from his thick bluish lips. Another boy began to plead to go home. He was the largest of the group, wearing dark, red fighting trunks much too small to conceal the erection which projected from him as though in answer to the insinuating low-registered moaning of the clarinet. He tried to hide himself with his boxing gloves, and all the while the blonde continued dancing, smiling faintly at the big shots who watched her with fascination and faintly smiling at our fear. I noticed a certain merchant who followed her hungrily, his lips loose and drooling. He was a large man who wore diamond studs in a shirt front which swelled with the ample paunch underneath, and each time the blonde swayed her undulating hips he ran his hand through the thin hair of his bald head, and, with his arms upheld, his posture clumsy like that of an intoxicated panda, wound his belly in a slow and obscene grind. This creature was completely hypnotized. The music had quickened. As the dancer flung herself about with a detached expression on her face, the men began reaching out to touch her. I could see their beefy fingers sink into the soft flesh. Some of the others tried to stop them, and she began to move around the floor in graceful circles as they gave chase, slipping and sliding over the polished floor. It was mad. Chairs went crashing, drinks were spilt as they ran laughing and howling after her. They caught her just as she reached a door, raised her from the floor, and tossed her as college boys are tossed at a hazing, and, above her red, fixed, smiling lips, I saw the terror and disgust in her eyes, almost like my own terror, and that which I saw in some of the other boys. As I watched, they tossed her twice, and her soft breasts seemed to flatten against the air, and her legs flung wildly as she spun. Some of the more sober ones helped her to escape, and I started off the floor, heading for the anteroom with the rest of the boys. Some were still crying and in hysteria. But as we tried to leave, we were stopped and ordered to get into the ring. There was nothing to do but what we were told. All 10 of us climbed under the ropes and allowed ourselves to be blindfolded with broad bands of white cloth. One of the men seemed to feel a bit sympathetic and tried to cheer us up as we stood with our backs against the ropes. Some of us tried to grin. "See that boy over there?" one of the men said. "I want you to run across at the bell and give it to him right in the belly. If you don't get him, I'm going to get you. I don't like his looks." Each of us was told the same. The blindfolds were put on, yet even then I had been going over my speech. In my mind each word was as bright as flame. I felt the cloth pressed into place and frowned so that it would be loosened when I relaxed. But now I felt a sudden fit of blind terror. I was unused to darkness. It was as though I had suddenly found myself in a dark room filled with poisonous cottonmouths. I could hear the bleary voices yelling insistently for the battle royal to begin. "Get going in there. Let me at that big nigger." I strained to pick up the school superintendent's voice, as though to squeeze some security out of that slightly more familiar sound. "Let me at those black sons of bitches," someone yelled. "No, Jackson, no," another voice yelled. "Here, somebody help me. Hold Jack. I want to get at that ginger-colored nigger. Tear him limb from limb," the first voice yelled. I stood against the ropes trembling, for in those days I was what they called ginger-colored, and he sounded as though he might crunch me between his teeth like a crisp ginger cookie. Quite a struggle was going on. Chairs were being kicked about, and I could hear voices grunting as with a terrific effort. I wanted to see more desperately than ever before, but the blindfold was as tight as a thick, skin-puckering scab, and when I raised my gloved hands to push the layers of white aside, a voice yelled, "Oh, no you don't, black bastard. Leave that alone. Ring the bell before Jackson kills him a coon." Someone boomed in the sudden silence, and I heard the bell clang and the sound of the feet scuffling forward. A glove smacked against my head. I pivoted, striking out stiffly as someone went past, and felt the jar ripple along the length of my arm to my shoulder. Then it seemed as though all 9 of the boys had turned upon me at once. Blows pounded me from all sides while I struck out as best I could. So many blows landed upon me that I wondered if I were not the only blindfolded fighter in the ring, or if the man called Jackson hadn't succeeded in getting me after all. Blindfolded, I could no longer control my motions. I had no dignity. I stumbled about like a baby or a drunken man. The smoke had become thicker, and with each new blow it seemed to sear and further restrict my lungs. My saliva became like hot, bitter glue. A glove connected with my head, filling my mouth with warm blood. It was everywhere. I could not tell if the moisture I felt upon my body was sweat or blood. A blow landed hard against the nape of my neck. I felt myself going over, my head hitting the floor. Streaks of blue light filled the black world behind the blindfold. I lay prone, pretending that I was knocked out, but felt myself seized by hands and yanked to my feet. "Get going, black boy, mix it up." My arms were like lead, my head smarting from blows. I managed to feel my way to the ropes and held on, trying to catch my breath. A glove landed in my midsection, and I went over again, feeling as though the smoke had become a knife, jabbed into my guts, pushed this way and that by the legs milling around me. I finally pulled erect and discovered that I could see the black, sweat-washed forms weaving in the smoky blue atmosphere like drunken dancers weaving to the rapid drum-like thuds of blows. Everyone fought hysterically. It was complete anarchy. Everybody fought everybody else. No group fought together for long. 2, 3, 4 fought one, then turned to fight each other, were themselves attacked. Blows landed below the belt and in the kidney, with the gloves open as well. As closed and with my eye partly opened now, there was not so much terror. I moved carefully, avoiding blows, although not too many to attract attention, fighting from group to group. The boys groped about like blind, cautious crabs crouching to protect their midsections, their heads pulled in short against their shoulders, their arms stretched nervously before them, with their fists testing the smoke-filled air like the knobbed feelers of hypersensitive snails. In one corner I glimpsed a boy violently punching the air and heard him scream in pain as he smashed his hand against a ring post. For a second I saw him bent over, holding his hand, then going down as a blow caught his unprotected head. I played one group against the other, slipping in and throwing a punch, then stepping out of range while pushing the others into the melee to take the blows blindly aimed at me. The smoke was agonizing, and there were no rounds, no bells at 3-minute intervals to relieve our exhaustion. The room spun round me, a swirl of light, smoke, sweating bodies surrounded by tense white faces. I bled from both nose and mouth, the blood spattering upon my chest. The men kept yelling, "Slug him, black boy, knock his guts out, uppercut him, kill him. Kill that big boy." Taking a fake fall, I saw a boy going down heavily beside me as, though we were felled by a single blow, saw a sneaker-clad foot shoot into his groin as the two who had knocked him down stumbled upon him. I rolled out of range, feeling a twinge of nausea. The harder we fought, the more threatening the men became. And yet I had begun to worry about my speech again. How would it go? Would they recognize my ability? What would they give me? I was fighting automatically when suddenly I noticed that one after another of the boys was leaving the ring. I was surprised, filled with panic, as though I had been left alone with an unknown danger. Then I understood. The boys had arranged it among themselves. It was the custom for the 2 men left in the ring to slug it out for the winner's prize. I discovered this too late. When the bell sounded, 2 men in tuxedos leaped into the ring and removed the blindfold. I found myself facing Tatlock, the biggest of the gang. I felt sick at my stomach. Hardly had the bell stopped ringing in my ears than it clanged again, and I saw him moving swiftly toward me. Thinking of nothing else to do, I hit him smash on the nose. He kept coming, bringing the rank, sharp violence of stale sweat. His face was a black blank of a face, only his eyes alive, with hate of me and aglow with a feverish terror from what had happened to us all. I became anxious. I wanted to deliver my speech, and he came at me as though he meant to beat it out of me. I smashed him again and again, taking his blows as they came. Then, on a sudden impulse, I struck him lightly, and as we clinched, I whispered, "Fake, like I knocked you out, you can have the prize." "I'll break your behind," he whispered hoarsely. "For them? For me, son of a bitch?" They were yelling for us to break it up, and Tatlock spun me half around with a blow, and as a joggled camera sweeps in a reeling scene, I saw the howling red faces crouching tense beneath the cloud of blue-gray smoke. For a moment the world wavered, unraveled, flowed, then my head cleared and Tatlock bounced before me. That fluttering shadow before my eyes was his jabbing left hand. Then falling forward, my head against his damp shoulder, I whispered, "I'll make it $5 more. Go to hell." But his muscles relaxed a trifle beneath my pressure, and I breathed. "7? Give it to your ma," he said, ripping me beneath the heart, and while I still held him, I butted him and moved away. I felt myself bombarded with punches. I fought back with hopeless desperation. I wanted to deliver my speech more than anything else in the world, felt that only these men could judge truly my ability, and now this stupid clown was ruining my chances. I began fighting carefully now, moving in to punch him, and out again with my greater speed. A lucky blow to his chin, and I had him going too, until I heard a loud voice yell, "I got my money on the big boy." Hearing this, I almost dropped my guard. I was confused. Should I try to win against the voice out there? Would not this go against my speech? And was not this a moment for humility, for non-resistance? A blow to my head as I danced about sent my right eye popping like a jack-in-the-box, and settled my dilemma. The room went red as I fell. It was a dream fall. My body languid and fastidious as to where to land, until the floor became impatient and smashed up to meet me. A moment later I came to. An hypnotic voice said 5 emphatically, and I lay there, hazily watching a dark red spot of my own blood shaping itself into a butterfly, glistening and soaking into the soiled grey world of the canvas. When the voice drawled 10, I was lifted up and dragged to a chair. I sat dazed, my eye pained and swelled with each throb of my pounding heart, and I wondered if now I would be allowed to speak. I was wringing, wet, my mouth still bleeding. We were grouped along the wall now. The other boys ignored me as they congratulated Tatlock and speculated as to how much they would be paid. One boy whimpered over his smashed hand. Looking up front, I saw attendants in white jackets rolling the portable ring away and placing a small square rug in the vacant space, surrounded by chairs. Perhaps, I thought, I will stand on the rug to deliver my speech. Then the MC called to us, "Come on up here, boys, and get your money." We ran forward to where the men laughed and talked in their chairs, waiting. Everyone seemed friendly now. "There it is on the rug," the man said. I saw the rug covered with coins of all dimensions and a few crumpled bills. But what excited me, scattered here and there, were the gold pieces. "Boys, it's all yours," the man said. "You get all you grab." "That's right, Sambo," a blond man said, winking at me, confidentially. I trembled with excitement, forgetting my pain. I would get the gold and the bills, I thought. I would use both hands. I would throw my body against the boys nearest me to block them from the gold. "Get down around the rug now," the man commanded, "and don't anyone touch it until I give the signal." "This ought to be good," I heard. As told, we got around the square rug on our knees. Slowly the man raised his freckled hand as we followed it upward with our eyes. I heard, "These niggers look like they're about to pray." Then, "Ready," the man said. "Go." I lunged for a yellow coin lying on the blue design of the carpet, touching it and sending a surprised shriek to join those rising around me. I tried frantically to remove my hand but could not let go. A hot, violent force tore through my body, shaking me like a wet rat. The rug was electrified. The hair bristled up on my head as I shook myself free. My muscles jumped, my nerves jangled, writhed. But I saw that this was not stopping the other boys. Laughing in fear and embarrassment, some were holding back and scooping up the coins knocked off by the painful contortions of the others. The men roared above us as we struggled. "Pick it up, goddammit, pick it up!" Someone called like a bass-voiced parrot, "Go on, get it!" I crawled rapidly around the floor, picking up the coins, trying to avoid the coppers and to get greenbacks and the gold, ignoring the shock by laughing. As I brushed the coins off quickly, I discovered that I could contain the electricity, a contradiction, but it works. Then the men began to push us onto the rug. Laughing embarrassedly, we struggled out of their hands and kept after the coins. We were all wet and slippery and hard to hold. Suddenly I saw a boy lifted into the air, glistening with sweat like a circus seal, and dropped, his wet back landing flush upon the charged rug, heard him yell and saw him literally dance upon his back, elbows beating a frenzied tattoo upon the floor, his muscles twitching like the flesh of a horse stung. My many flies. When he finally rolled off, his face was grey, and no one stopped him when he ran from the floor amid booming laughter. "Get the money," the MC called. "That's good hard American cash." And we snatched and grabbed. I was careful not to come too close to the rug now, and when I felt the hot whiskey breath descend upon me like a cloud of foul air, I reached out and grabbed the leg of a chair. It was occupied, and I held on desperately. "Lego, nigger, Lego!" The huge face wavered down to mine as he tried to push me free. But my body was slippery and he was too drunk. It was Mr. Colcord, who owned a chain of movie houses and entertainment palaces. Each time he grabbed me, I slipped out of his hands. It became a real struggle. I feared the rug more than I did the drunk, so I held on, surprising myself for a moment by trying to topple him upon the rug. It was such an enormous idea that I found myself actually carrying it out. I tried not to be obvious, yet when I grabbed his leg trying to tumble him out of the chair, he raised up roaring with laughter and, looking at me with soberness dead in the eye, kicked me viciously in the chest. The chair leg flew out of my hand and I felt myself going and rolled. It was as though I had rolled through a bed of hot coals. It seemed a whole century would pass before I would roll free, a century in which I was seared through the deepest levels of my body to the fearful breath within me, and the breath seared and heated to the point of explosion. It'll all be over in a flash, I thought as I rolled clear. It'll all be over in a flash. But not yet. The men on the other side were waiting, red faces, swollen as though from apoplexy as they bent forward in their chairs. Seeing their fingers coming toward me, I rolled away as a fumbled football rolls off the receiver's fingertips, back into the coals. That time I luckily sent the rug sliding out of place and heard the coins ringing against the floor and the boys scuffling to pick them up, and the MC calling, "All right, boys, that's all. Go get dressed and get your money." I was limp as a dish rag. My back felt as though it had been beaten with wires. When we had dressed, the MC came in and gave us each $5, except Tatlock, who got 10 for being last in the ring. Then he told us to leave. I was not to get a chance to deliver my speech, I thought. I was going out into the dim alley in despair when I was stopped and told to go back. I returned to the ballroom where the men were pushing back their chairs and gathering in groups to talk. The MC knocked on a table for quiet. "Gentlemen," he said, "we almost forgot an important part of the program. A most serious part, gentlemen. This boy was brought here to deliver a speech which he made at his graduation yesterday. Bravo. I'm told that he is the smartest boy we've got out there in Greenwood. I'm told that he knows more big words than a pocket-sized dictionary." Much applause and laughter. "So now, gentlemen, I want you to give him your attention." There was still laughter as I faced them, my mouth dry, my eye throbbing. I began slowly, but evidently my throat was tense, because they began shouting, "Louder, louder, we of the younger generation extol the wisdom of that great leader and educator," I shouted, "who first spoke these flaming words of wisdom. A ship lost at sea for many days suddenly sighted a friendly vessel. From the mast of the unfortunate vessel was seen a signal, 'Water, water, we die of thirst.' The answer from the friendly vessel came back, 'Cast down your bucket where you are.' The captain of the distressed vessel, at last heeding the injunction, cast down his bucket, and it came up full of fresh sparkling water from the mouth of the Amazon River. And like him I say, and in his words, to those of my race who depend upon bettering their condition in a foreign land, or who underestimate the importance of cultivating friendly relations with the southern white man, who is his next-door neighbor, I would say, cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down in making friends in every manly way of the people of all races by whom we are surrounded." I spoke automatically and with such fervor that I did not realize that the men were still talking and laughing until my dry mouth, filling up with blood from the cut, almost strangled me. I coughed, wanting to stop and go to one of the tall brass, sand-filled spittoons to relieve myself, but a few of the men, especially the superintendent, were listening, and I was afraid. So I gulped it down, blood, saliva, and all, and continued. What powers of endurance I had during those days! What enthusiasm! What a belief in the rightness of things! I spoke even louder in spite of the pain, but still they talked and still they laughed, as though deaf with cotton in dirty ears. So I spoke with greater emotional emphasis. I closed my ears and swallowed blood, until I was nauseated. The speech seemed 100 times as long as before, but I could not leave out a single word. All had to be said, each memorized, nuance considered, rendered. Nor was that all. Whenever I uttered a word of 3 or more syllables, a group of voices would yell for me to repeat it. I used the phrase social responsibility, and they yelled, "What's that word you say, boy?" "Social responsibility," I said. "What? Social, louder. Responsibility, more. Repeat, civility." The room filled with the uproar of laughter, until, no doubt, distracted by having to gulp down my blood, I made a mistake and yelled a phrase I had often seen denounced in newspaper editorials, heard debated in private, social, what? They yelled, equality. The laughter hung smoke-like in the sudden stillness. I opened my eyes, puzzled. Sounds of displeasure filled the room. The MC rushed forward. They shouted hostile phrases at me, but I did not understand. A small, dry, mustached man in the front row blared out, "Say that, slowly, son." "What, sir?" "What you just said, social responsibility, sir," I said. "You weren't being smart, were you, boy?" He said not unkindly, "No, sir. You sure that about equality was a mistake?" "Oh, yes, sir," I said. "I was swallowing blood." "Well, you had better speak more slowly so we can understand. We mean to do right by you, but you've got to know your place at all times." "All right now. Go on with your speech." I was afraid. I wanted to leave, but I wanted also to speak, and I was afraid they'd snatch me down. "Thank you, sir," I said, beginning where I had left off, and having them ignore me as before. Yet when I finished, there was a thunderous applause. I was surprised to see the superintendent come forth with a package wrapped in white tissue, paper, and, gesturing for quiet, address the men. "Gentlemen, you see that I did not overpraise this boy. He makes a good speech, and someday he'll lead his people in the proper paths. And I don't have to tell you that that is important in these days and times. This is a good, smart boy. And so, to encourage him in the right direction, in the name of the Board of Education, I wish to present him a prize in the form of this." He paused, removing the tissue paper and revealing a gleaming calfskin briefcase, "in the form of this first-class article from Shad Whitmore's shop. Boy," he said, addressing me, "take this prize and keep it well. Consider it a badge of office. Prize it. Keep developing as you are, and some day it will be filled with important papers that will help shape the destiny of your people." I was so moved that I could hardly express my thanks. A rope of bloody saliva forming a shape like an undiscovered continent drooled upon the leather, and I wiped it quickly away. I felt an importance that I had never dreamed. "Open it and see what's inside," I was told. My fingers a tremble, I complied, smelling the fresh leather and finding an official-looking document inside. It was a scholarship to the State College for Negroes. My eyes filled with tears, and I ran awkwardly off the floor. I was overjoyed. I did not even mind when I discovered that the gold pieces I had scrambled for were brass pocket tokens advertising a certain make of automobile. When I reached home, everyone was excited. Next day, the neighbors came to congratulate me. I even felt safe from grandfather, whose deathbed curse usually spoiled my triumphs. I stood beneath his photograph with my briefcase in hand and smiled triumphantly into his stolid black peasant's face. It was a face that fascinated me. The eyes seemed to follow everywhere I went. That night I dreamed I was at a circus with him and that he refused to laugh at the clowns no matter what they did. Then later he told me to open my briefcase and read what was inside, and I did, finding an official envelope stamped with the state seal, and inside the envelope I found another, and another, endlessly, and I thought I would fall of weariness. "Them's years," he said. "Now open that one." And I did, and in it I found an engraved document containing a short message in letters of gold. "Read it," my grandfather said, "out loud, to whom it may concern, I intend. Keep this nigger boy running." I awoke with the old man's laughter ringing in my ears. It was a dream I was to remember and dream again for many years after. But at that time I had no insight into its meaning. First I had to attend college. Chapter 2. It was a beautiful college. The buildings were old and covered with vines, and the roads gracefully winding, lined with hedges and wild roses that dazzled the eyes in the summer sun. Honeysuckle and purple wisteria hung heavy from the trees, and white magnolias mixed with their scents in the bee-humming air. I've recalled it often, here in my hole, how the grass turned green in the springtime, and how the mockingbirds fluttered their tails and sang, how the moon shone down on the buildings, how the bell in the chapel tower rang out the precious, short-lived hours, how the girls in bright summer dresses promenaded the grassy lawn. Many times here at night I've closed my eyes and walked along the forbidden road that winds past the girls' dormitories, past the hall with the clock in the tower, its windows warmly aglow, on down past the small white home economics practice cottage, whiter still in the moonlight, and on down the road with its sloping and turning, paralleling the black powerhouse with its engines droning earth-shaking rhythms in the dark, its windows red from the glow of the furnace, on to where the road became a bridge over a dry riverbed, tangled with brush and clinging vines, the bridge of rustic logs, made for trysting, but virginal and untested by lovers, on up the road, past the buildings, with the southern verandas half a city block long, to the sudden forking barren of buildings, birds or grass, where the road turned off to the insane asylum. I always come this far and open my eyes. The spell breaks, and I try to re-see the rabbits, so tame through having never been hunted, that played in the hedges and along the road. And I see the purple and silver of thistle, growing between the broken glass and sun-heated stones, the ants moving nervously in single file, and I turn and retrace my steps and come back to the winding road past the hospital, where at night in certain wards the gay student nurses dispensed a far more precious thing than pills to lucky boys in the know, and I come to a stop at the chapel, and then it is suddenly winter, with the moon high above and the chimes in the steeple ringing, and a sonorous choir of trombones rendering a Christmas carol, and over all is a quietness and an ache as though all the world were loneliness, and I stand and listen beneath the high-hung moon, hearing a mighty fortress is our God majestically mellow on 4 trombones, and then the organ. The sound floats over all, clear like the night, liquid, serene, and lonely. And I stand as for an answer, and see in my mind's eye the cabins surrounded by empty fields beyond red clay roads, and beyond a certain road a river, sluggish and covered with algae more yellow than green in its stagnant stillness, past more empty fields, to the sun-shrunk shacks at the railroad crossing, where the disabled veterans visited the whores, hobbling down the tracks on crutches and canes, sometimes pushing the legless, thighless one in a red wheelchair, and sometimes I listen to hear if music reaches that far, but recall only the drunken laughter of sad, sad whores, and I stand in the circle where 3 roads converge near the statue, where we drilled 4 abreast down the smooth asphalt and pivoted and entered the chapel on Sundays, our uniforms pressed, shoes shined, minds laced up, eyes blind like those of robots, to visitors and officials on the low, whitewashed reviewing stand. It's so long ago and far away that here in my invisibility I wonder if it happened at all. Then in my mind's eye I see the bronze statue of the college founder, the cold father symbol, his hands outstretched in the breathtaking gesture of lifting a veil that flutters in hard, metallic folds above, the face of a kneeling slave, and I am standing puzzled, unable to decide whether the veil is really being lifted or lowered more firmly in place, whether I am witnessing a revelation or a more efficient blinding. And as I gaze, there is a rustle of wings, and I see a flock of starlings flighting before me, and when I look again, the bronze face, whose empty eyes look upon a world I have never seen, runs with liquid chalk, creating another ambiguity to puzzle my groping mind. Why is a bird-soiled statue more commanding than one that is clean? Oh, long green stretch of campus, oh, quiet songs at dusk, oh, moon that kissed the steeple and flooded the perfumed nights, oh, bugle that called in the morning, oh, drum that marched us militarily at noon. What was real, what solid, what more than a pleasant time-killing dream? For how could it have been real if now I am invisible? If real, why is it that I can recall in all that island of greenness no fountain but one that was broken, corroded and dry? And why does no rain fall through my recollections, sound through my memories, soak through the hard, dry crust of the still so recent past? Why do I recall, instead of the odor of seed bursting in springtime, only the yellow contents of the cistern spread over the lawn's dead grass? Why and how and why? The grass did grow, and the green leaves appeared on the trees and filled the avenues with shadow and shade as sure as the millionaires descended from the north on Founder's Day each spring, and how they arrived, came smiling, inspecting, encouraging, conversing in whispers, speech-making into the wide-open ears of our black and yellow faces, and each leaving a sizable check as he departed. I'm convinced it was the product of a subtle magic, the alchemy of moonlight, the school a flower-studded wasteland, the rocks sunken, the dry winds hidden, the lost crickets chirping to yellow butterflies, and oh, those multi-millionaires. They were all such a part of that other life that's dead that I can't remember them all. Time was as I was, but neither that time nor that I are any more. But this one I remember. Near the end of my junior year I drove for him during the week he was on the campus. A face pink like St. Nicholas's, topped with a shock of silk-white hair. An easy, informal manner, even with me. A Bostonian, smoker of cigars, teller of polite Negro stories. Shrewd banker, skilled scientist, director, philanthropist, 40 years a bearer of the white man's burden, and for 60 a symbol of the great traditions. We were driving, the powerful motor purring and filling me with pride and anxiety. The car smelled of mints and cigar smoke. Students looked up and smiled in recognition as we rolled slowly past. I had just come from dinner, and in bending forward to suppress a belch, I accidentally pressed the button on the wheel, and the belch became a loud and shattering blast of the horn. Folks on the road turned and stared. "I'm awfully sorry, sir," I said, worried lest he report me to Dr. Bledsoe, the president, who would refuse to allow me to drive again. "Perfectly all right." "Perfectly. Where shall I drive you, sir?" "Let me see." Through the rear-view mirror, I could see him studying a wafer-thin watch, replacing it in the pocket of his checked waistcoat. His shirt was soft, silk, set off with a blue and white polka-dotted bow tie. His manner was aristocratic, his movements dapper and suave. "It's early to go in for the next session," he said. "Suppose you just drive anywhere you like. Have you seen all the campus, sir?" "Yes, I think so. I was one of the original founders, you know." "Gee, I didn't know that, sir. Then I'll have to try some of the roads." Of course I knew he was a founder, but I knew also that it was advantageous to flatter rich white folks. Perhaps he'd give me a large tip, or a suit or a scholarship next year. "Anywhere else you like. The campus is part of my life, and I know my life rather well." "Yes, sir." He was still smiling. In a moment the green campus with its vine-covered buildings was behind us. The car bounded over the road. How was the campus part of his life, I wondered, and how did one learn his life rather well? Young man, you're part of a wonderful institution. It is a great dream become reality. Yes, sir, I said. I feel as lucky to be connected with it as you no doubt do yourself. I came here years ago, when all your beautiful campus was barren ground. There were no trees, no flowers, no fertile farmland. That was years ago, before you were born. I listened with fascination, my eyes glued to the white line dividing the highway as my thoughts attempted to sweep back to the times of which he spoke. Even your parents were young. Slavery was just recently passed. Your people did not know in what direction to turn, and I must confess, many of mine didn't know in what direction they should turn either. But your great founder did. He was my friend, and I believed in his vision, so much so that sometimes I don't know whether it was his vision or mine. He chuckled softly, wrinkles forming at the corners of his eyes. But of course it was his. I only assisted. I came down with him to see the barren land and did what I could to render assistance. And it has been my pleasant fate to return each spring and observe the changes that the years have wrought. That has been more pleasant and satisfying to me than my own work. It has been a pleasant fate, indeed. His voice was mellow and loaded with more meaning than I could fathom. As I drove, faded and yellowed pictures of the school's early days, displayed in the library, flashed across the screen of my mind, coming fitfully and fragmentarily to life. Photographs of men and women in wagons drawn by mule teams and oxen, dressed in black, dusty clothing, people who seemed almost without individuality, a black mob that seemed to be waiting, looking with blank faces, and among them the inevitable collection of white men and women in smiles, clear of features, striking, elegant and confident, until now, and although I could recognize the founder and Dr. Bledsoe among them, the figures in the photographs had never seemed actually to have been alive, but were more like signs or symbols one found on the last pages of the dictionary. But now I felt that I was sharing in a great work, and with the car leaping leisurely beneath the pressure of my foot, I identified myself with the rich man reminiscing on the rear seat. "A pleasant fate," he repeated, "and I hope yours will be as pleasant." "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir," I said, pleased that he wished something pleasant for me. But at the same time I was puzzled. How could anyone's fate be pleasant? I had always thought of it as something painful. No one I knew spoke of it as pleasant, not even Woodridge, who made us read Greek plays. We were beyond the farthest extension of the school-owned lands. Now and I suddenly decided to turn off the highway, down a road that seemed unfamiliar. There were no trees and the air was brilliant. Far down the road the sun glared cruelly against a tin sign nailed to a barn. A lone figure bending over a hoe on the hillside raised up wearily and waved, more a shadow against the skyline than a man. "How far have we come?" I heard over my shoulder. "Just about a mile, sir." "I don't remember this section," he said. I didn't answer. I was thinking of the first person who'd mentioned anything like fate in my presence, my grandfather. There had been nothing pleasant about it, and I had tried to forget it. Now, riding here in the powerful car with this white man who was so pleased with what he called his fate, I felt a sense of dread. My grandfather would have called this treachery, and I could not understand in just what way it was. Suddenly I grew guilty, at the realization that the white man might have thought so too. What would he have thought? Did he know that Negroes like my grandfather had been free during those days just before the college had been founded? As we came to a side road, I saw a team of oxen hitched to a broken-down wagon, the ragged driver dozing on the seat beneath the shade of a clump of trees. "Did you see that, sir?" I asked over my shoulder. "What was it?" The ox team, sir. Oh, no, I can't see it for the trees, he said, looking back. It's good timber. I'm sorry, sir. Shall I turn back? No, it isn't much, he said. Go on. I drove on, remembering the lean, hungry face of the sleeping man. He was the kind of white man I feared. The brown fields swept out to the horizon. A flock of birds dipped down, circled, swung up and out as though linked by invisible strings. Waves of heat danced above the engine hood. The tires sang over the highway. Finally, I overcame my timidity and asked him, "Sir, why did you become interested in the school?" "I think," he said, thoughtfully raising his voice, "it was because I felt even as a young man that your people were somehow closely connected with my destiny. Do you understand?" "Not so clearly, sir," I said, ashamed to admit it. "You have studied Emerson, haven't you?" "Emerson, sir? Ralph Waldo Emerson." I was embarrassed because I hadn't. "Not yet, sir. We haven't come to him yet." "No?" he said with a note of surprise. "Well, never mind. I am a New Englander like Emerson. You must learn about him, for he was important to your people. He had a hand in your destiny." "Yes, perhaps that is what I mean. I had a feeling that your people were somehow connected with my destiny, that what happened to you was connected with what would happen to me." I slowed the car, trying to understand. Through the glass I saw him, gazing at the long ash of his cigar, holding it delicately in his slender, manicured fingers. "Yes, you are my fate, young man. Only you can tell me what it really is. Do you understand?" "I think I do, sir. I mean that upon you depends the outcome of the years I have spent in helping your school. That has been my life's work, not my banking or my researches, but my first-hand organizing of human life." I saw him now, leaning toward the front seat, speaking with an intensity which had not been there before. It was hard not to turn my eyes from the highway and face him. "There is another reason, a reason more important, more passionate, and, yes, even more sacred than all the others," he said, no longer seeming to see me, but speaking to himself alone. "Yes, even more sacred than all the others. A girl, my daughter. She was a being more rare, more beautiful, purer, more perfect and more delicate than the wildest dream of a poet. I could never believe her to be my own flesh and blood. Her beauty was a wellspring of purest water of life, and to look upon her was to drink and drink and drink again. She was rare, a perfect creation, a work of purest art, a delicate flower that bloomed in the liquid light of the moon. A nature, not of this world, a personality like that of some biblical maiden, gracious and queenly. I found it difficult to believe her my own." Suddenly he fumbled in his vest pocket and thrust something over the back of the seat, surprising me. "Here, young man, you owe much of your good fortune in attending such a school to her." I looked upon the tinted miniature framed in engraved platinum. I almost dropped it. A young woman of delicate, dreamy features looked up at me. She was very beautiful, I thought at the time, so beautiful that I did not know whether I should express admiration to the extent I felt it, or merely act polite. And yet I seemed to remember her, or someone like her, in the past. I know now that it was the flowing costume of soft, flimsy material that made for the effect, today, dressed in one of the smart, well-tailored, angular, sterile, streamlined, engine-turned, air-conditioned modern outfits you see in the women's magazines. She would appear as ordinary as an expensive piece of machine-tooled jewelry, and just as lifeless. Then, however, I shared something of his enthusiasm. "She was too pure for life," he said sadly, "too pure and too good, and too beautiful. We were sailing together, touring the world, just she and I, when she became ill in Italy. I thought little of it at the time, and we continued across the Alps. When we reached Munich, she was already fading away, While we were attending an embassy party, she collapsed. The best medical science in the world could not save her. It was a lonely return, a bitter voyage. I have never recovered. I have never forgiven myself. Everything I've done since her passing has been a monument to her memory." He became silent, looking with his blue eyes far beyond the field, stretching away in the sun. I returned the miniature, wondering what in the world had made him open his heart to me. That was something I never did. It was dangerous. First, it was dangerous if you felt like that about anything, because then you'd never get it, or something or someone would take it away from you. Then it was dangerous because nobody would understand you and they'd only laugh and think you were crazy. So you see, young man, you are involved in my life quite intimately, even though you've never seen me before. You are bound to a great dream and to a beautiful monument if you become a good farmer, a chef, a preacher, doctor, singer, mechanic, whatever you become. And even if you fail, you are my fate. And you must write me and tell me the outcome." I was relieved to see him smiling through the mirror. My feelings were mixed. Was he kidding me? Was he talking to me like someone in a book just to see how I would take it? Or could it be I was almost afraid to think that this rich man was just the tiniest bit crazy? How could I tell him his fate? He raised his head, and our eyes met for an instant in the glass. Then I lowered mine to the blazing white line that divided the highway. The trees along the road were thick and tall. We took a curve. Flocks of quail sailed up and over a field, brown, sailing down, blending. "Will you promise to tell me my fate?" I heard. "Sir, will you?" "Right now, sir," I asked with embarrassment. "It is up to you. Now, if you like." I was silent. His voice was serious, demanding. I could think of no reply. The motor purred. An insect crushed itself against the windshield, leaving a yellow mucus smear. "I don't know now, sir. This is only my junior year. But you'll tell me when you know." "I'll try, sir." "Good." When I took a quick glance into the mirror, he was smiling again. First, wanted to ask him if being rich and famous and helping to direct the school, to become what it was, wasn't enough, but I was afraid. "What do you think of my idea, young man?" he said. "I don't know, sir. I only think that you have what you're looking for, because if I fail or leave school, it doesn't seem to me it would be your fault, because you helped make the school what it is, and you think that enough?" "Yes, sir. That's what the president tells us. You have yours, and you got it yourself, and we have to lift ourselves up the same way. But that's only part of it, young man. I have wealth and a reputation and prestige. All that is true. But your great founder had more than that. He had tens of thousands of lives dependent upon his ideas and upon his actions. What he did affected your whole race. In a way, he had the power of a king, or in a sense of a god. That, I've come to believe, is more important than my own work, because more depends upon you. You are important because if you fail, I have failed by one individual, one defective cog. It didn't matter so much before, but now I'm growing old and it has become very important. But you don't even know my name, I thought, wondering what it was all about. I suppose it is difficult for you to understand how this concerns me, but as you develop, you must remember that I am dependent upon you to learn my fate. Through you and your fellow students I become, let us say, 300 teachers, 700 trained mechanics, 800 skilled farmers, and so on. That way I can observe in terms of living personalities to what extent my money, my time and my hopes have been fruitfully invested. I also construct a living memorial to my daughter. Understand? I can see the fruits produced by the land that your great founder has transformed from barren clay to fertile soil. His voice ceased, and I saw the strands of pale blue smoke drifting across the mirror and heard the electric lighter snap back on its cable into place behind the back of the seat. "I think I understand you better now, sir," I said. "Very good, my boy. Shall I continue in this direction, sir?" "By all means," he said, looking out at the countryside. "I've never seen this section before. It's new territory for me." Half-consciously I followed the white line as I drove, thinking about what he had said. Then, as we took a hill, we were swept by a wave of scorching air, and it was as though we were approaching a desert. It almost took my breath away, and I leaned over and switched on the fan, hearing its sudden whir. "Thank you," he said as a slight breeze filled the car. We were passing a collection of shacks and log cabins now, bleached, white and warped by the weather. Sun-tortured shingles lay on the roofs like decks of water-soaked cards spread out to dry. The houses consisted of 2 square rooms joined together by a common floor and roof, with a porch in between. As we passed, we could look through to the fields beyond. I stopped, the car at his excited command, in front of a house set off from the rest. "Is that a log cabin?" It was an old cabin, with its chinks filled with chalk-white clay, with bright new shingles patching its roof. Suddenly I was sorry that I had blundered down this road. I recognized the place as soon as I saw the group of children in stiff new overalls who played near a rickety fence. "Yes, sir." "It is a log cabin," I said. It was the cabin of Jim Trueblood, a sharecropper who had brought disgrace upon the black community. Several months before he had caused quite a bit of outrage up at the school, and now his name was never mentioned above a whisper. Even before that, he had seldom come near the campus, but had been well liked as a hard worker who took good care of his family's needs, and as one who told the old stories with a sense of humor and a magic that made them come alive. He was also a good tenor singer, and sometimes when special white guests visited the school he was brought up along with the members of a country quartet to sing what the officials called their primitive spirituals when we assembled in the chapel on Sunday evenings. We were embarrassed by the earthy harmonies they sang, but since the visitors were awed, we dared not laugh at the crude, high, plaintively animal sounds Jim Trueblood made as he led the quartet. That had all passed now with his disgrace, and what on the part of the school officials had been an attitude of contempt blunted by tolerance had now become a contempt sharpened by hate. I didn't understand in those pre-invisible days that their hate, and mine too, was charged with fear. How all of us at the college hated the black belt people, the peasants, during those days. We were trying to lift them up, and they, like Trueblood, did everything, it seemed, to pull us down. "It appears quite old," Mr. Norton said, looking across the bare, hard stretch of yard where 2 women dressed in new blue and white checked ginghams were washing clothes in an iron pot. The pot was soot-black, and the feeble flames that licked its sides showed pale pink and bordered with black, like flames in morning. Both women moved with the weary, full-fronted motions of far-gone pregnancy. "It is, sir," I said. "That one and the other 2 like it were built during slavery times." "You don't say." "I would never have believed that they were so enduring. Since slavery times." "That's true, sir. And the white family that owned the land when it was a big plantation still lives in town." "Yes," he said. "I know that many of the old families still survive. And individuals, too. The human stock goes on, even though it degenerates. But these cabins," he seemed surprised and confounded. "Do you suppose those women know anything about the age and history of the place? The older one looks as though she might—" "I doubt it, sir. They don't seem very bright." "Bright," he said, removing his cigar. "You mean that they wouldn't talk with me?" he asked suspiciously. "Yes, sir, that's it. Why not?" I didn't want to explain. It made me feel ashamed, but he sensed that I knew something and pressed me. "It's not very nice, sir. But I don't think those women would talk to us. We can explain that we're from the school. Surely they'll talk then. You may tell them who I am. Yes, sir, I said, but they hate us up at the school. They never come there. What? No, sir. And those children along the fence down there? They don't either, sir. But why? I don't really know, sir. Quite a few folks out this way don't, though I guess they're too ignorant. They're not interested. But I can't believe it. The children had stopped playing and now looked silently at the car, their arms behind their backs and their new oversized overalls pulled tight over their little pot bellies as though they too were pregnant. What about their menfolk? I hesitated. Why did he find this so strange? He hates us, sir, I said. You say he. Aren't both the women married? I caught my breath. I'd made a mistake. The old one is, sir, I said, reluctantly. What happened to the young woman's husband? She doesn't have any, that is, What is it, young man? Do you know these people? Only a little, sir. There was some talk about them up on the campus a while back. What talk? Well, the young woman is the old woman's daughter, and... Well, sir, they say, they say the daughter doesn't have a husband. Oh, I see, but that shouldn't be so strange. I understand that your people... Never mind. Is that all? Well, sir, yes, what else? They say that her father did it. What? Yes, sir, that he gave her the baby. I heard the sharp intake of breath, like a toy balloon suddenly, deflated. His face reddened. I was confused, feeling shame for the two women, and fear that I had talked too much and offended his sensibilities. And did anyone from the school investigate this matter? He asked. At last. Yes, sir, I said. What was discovered? That it was true, they say, but how does he explain his doing such a monstrous thing? He sat back in the seat, his hands grasping his knees, his knuckles bloodless. I looked away down the heat-dazzling concrete of the highway. I wished we were back on the other side of the white line, heading back to the quiet green stretch of the campus. It is said that the man took both his wife and his daughter? Yes, sir, and that he is the father of both their children? Yes, sir. No. He sounded as though he were in great pain. I looked at him, anxiously. What had happened? What had I said? Not that. No, he said with something like horror. I saw the sun blaze upon the new blue overalls as the man appeared, around the cabin. His shoes were tan and new, and he moved easily over the hot earth. He was a small man, and he covered the yard with a familiarity that would have allowed him to walk in the blackest darkness with the same certainty. He came and said something to the women as he fanned himself with a blue bandana handkerchief, but they appeared to regard him sullenly, barely speaking and hardly looking in his direction. Would that be the man? Mr. Norton asked. Yes, sir. I think so. Get out, he cried. I must talk with him. I was unable to move. I felt surprise and a dread and resentment of what he might say to Trueblood and his women, the questions he might ask. Why couldn't he leave them alone? Hurry! I climbed from the car and opened the rear door. He clambered out and almost ran across the road to the yard as though compelled by some pressing urgency which I could not understand. Then suddenly I saw the two women turn and run frantically behind the house, their movements heavy and flat-footed. I hurried behind him, seeing him stop when he reached the man and the children. They became silent, their faces clouding over, their features becoming soft and negative, their eyes bland and deceptive. They were crouching behind their eyes, waiting for him to speak, just as I recognized that I was trembling behind my own. Up close I saw what I had not seen. From the car, the man had a scar on his right cheek as though he had been hit in the face with a sledge. The wound was raw and moist, and from time to time he lifted his handkerchief to fan away the gnats. Mr. Norton stammered. I must talk with you. All right, sir, Jim Trueblood said without surprise and waited. Is it true? Did you, sir? Trueblood asked as I looked away. You have survived, he blurted. But is it true, sir? The farmer said, his brow wrinkling with bewilderment. I'm sorry, sir, I said, but I don't think he understands you. He ignored me, staring into Trueblood's face as though reading a message there which I could not perceive. You did and are unharmed, he shouted, his blue eyes blazing into the black face with something like envy and indignation. Trueblood looked helplessly at me. I looked away. I understood no more than he. "You have looked upon chaos and are not destroyed." "No, sir. I feels all right." "You do? You feel no inner turmoil, no need to cast out the offending eye?" "Sir, answer me." "I'm all right, sir," Trueblood said uneasily. "My eyes is all right too, and when I feels poorly in my gut I takes a little soda and it goes away." "No, no, no. Let us go where there is shade," he said, looking about excitedly and going swiftly to where the porch cast a swath of shade. We followed him. The farmer placed his hand on my shoulder, but I shook it off, knowing that I could explain nothing. We sat on the porch in a semicircle in camp chairs, me between the sharecropper and the millionaire. The earth around the porch was hard and white from where washwater had long been thrown. "How are you faring now?" Mr. Norton asked. "Perhaps I could help." "We ain't doing so bad, sir. For they heard about what happened to us out here, I couldn't get no help from nobody. Now lot of folks is curious and goes out of they way to help. Even the biggity school folks up on the hill, only there was a catch to it. They offered to send us clean out of the county, pay our way and everything, and give me $100 to get settled with, but we likes it here, so I told 'em no. Then they sent a fellow out here, a big fellow too, and he said if I didn't leave they was going to turn the white folks loose on me. It made me mad and it made me scared. Them folks up there to the school is in strong with the white folks, and that scared me. But I thought when they first come out here that they was different from when I went up there a long time ago looking for some book learning and some points on how to handle my crops. That was when I had my own place. I thought they was trying to heat me on account of I got 2 women due to birth about the same time. But I got mad when I found they was trying to get rid of us 'cause they said we was a disgrace. Yes, sir, I got real mad. So I went down to see Mr. Buchanan, the boss man, and I told him about it, and he give me a note to the sheriff and told me to take it to him. I did that just like he told me. I went to the jailhouse and gave Sheriff Barber the note, and he asked me to tell him what happened. And I told him, and he called in some more men, and they made me tell it again. They wanted to hear about the gal lots of times, and they give me something to eat and drink and some tobacco. Surprised me, 'cause I was scared and 'spectin' something different. Why, I guess there ain't a colored man in the county who ever got to take so much of the white folks' time as I did. So finally they tell me not to worry, that they was going to send word up to the school that I was to stay right where I am. Them big niggers didn't bother me neither. It just goes to show ya that no matter how biggity a nigger gets, the white folks can always cut him down. The white folks took up for me, and the white folks took to coming out here to see us and talk with us. Some of 'em was big white folks too, from the big school way across the state. Asked me lots about what I thought about things and about my folks and the kids, and wrote it all down in a book. But best of all, sir, I got more work now than I ever did have before. He talked willingly now, with a kind of satisfaction and no trace of hesitancy or shame. The old man listened with a puzzled expression as he held an unlit cigar in his delicate fingers. "Things is pretty good now," the farmer said. "Every time I think of how cold it was and what a hard time we was having, I gets the shakes." I saw him bite into a plug of chewing tobacco. Something tinkled against the porch, and I picked it up, gazing at it from time to time. It was a hard red apple stamped out of tin. You see, sir, it was cold, and us didn't have much fire. Nothing but wood, no coal. I tried to get help, but wouldn't nobody help us, and I couldn't find no work or nothing. It was so cold all of us had to sleep together, me, the old lady and the gal. That's how it started, sir. He cleared his throat, his eyes gleaming and his voice taking on a deep, incantatory quality, as though he had told the story many, many times. Flies and fine white gnats swarmed about his wound. That's the way it was, he said. Me on one side and the old lady on the other and the gal in the middle. It was dark, plumb black, black as the middle of a bucket of tar. The kids were sleeping all together in their bed over in the corner. I must have been the last one to go to sleep, 'cause I was thinking 'bout how to get some grub for the next day, and 'bout the gal and the young boy what was starting to hang round her. I didn't like him, and he kept comin' through my thoughts, and I made up my mind to warn him away from the gal. It was black dark, and I heard one of the kids whimper in his sleep, and the last few sticks of kindlin' crackin' and settlin' in the stove, and the smell of the fat meat seemed to git cold and still in the air, just like meat grease when it gets set in a cold plate of molasses. And I was thinking 'bout the gal and this boy, and feelin' her arms besides me, and hearing the old lady snoring with a kind of moaning and a groaning on the other side. I was worryin' 'bout my family, how they was going to eat and all, and I thought 'bout when the gal was little like the young uns sleepin' over in the corner, and how I was her favourite over the old lady. There we was, breathin' together in the dark, only I could see 'em in my mind, knowin' 'em like I do. In my mind I looked at all of 'em, one by one. The gal looks just like the old lady did when she was young and I first met her, only better lookin'. You know, we gettin' to be a better lookin' race of people. Anyway, I could hear 'em breathin', and though I hadn't been, it made me sleepy. Then I heard the gal say, "Daddy," soft and low in her sleep, and I looked, trying to see if she was still awake. But all I can do is smell her and feel her breath on my hand when I go to touch her. She said it so soft I couldn't be sure I had heard anything, so I just laid there listening. Seems like I heard a whippoorwill calling, and I thought to myself, go on, away from here, we'll whip old Will when we find him. Then I heard the clock up there at the school striking 4 times lonesome like. Then I got to thinking 'bout way back when I left the farm and went to live in Mobile, and 'bout a gal I had me then. I was young then, like this young fellow here. Us lived in a 2-story house longside the river, and at night in the summertime we used to lay in bed and talk, and after she'd gone off to sleep I'd be awake, looking out at the lights coming up from the water and listening to the sounds of the boats moving along. They used to have musicians on them boats, and sometimes I used to wake her up to hear the music when they come up the river. I'd be layin' there and it would be quiet, and I could hear it comin' from way, way off. Like when you quail huntin' and it's getting dark and you can hear the boss bird whistlin', trying to get the covey together again, and he's coming toward you slow and whistlin' soft, 'cause he knows you somewhere around with your gun. Still he got to round 'em up, so he keeps on comin'. Them boss quails is like a good man, what he got to do he do. Well, that's the way the boats used to sound, comin' close to you from far away. First one would be comin' to you when you almost sleep, and it sounded like somebody hittin' at you slow with a big shiny pick. You see, the pick point comin' straight at you, comin' slow too, and you can't dodge. Only when it goes to hit you it ain't no pick at all, but somebody far away, breakin' little bottles of all kinds of coloured glass. It's still comin' at you, though, still comin'. Then you hear it close up, like when you up in the 2nd-story window and look down on a wagon full of watermelons, and you see one of them young juicy melons split wide open, a layin' all spread out and cool and sweet on top of all the striped green ones, like it's waitin' just for you, so you can see how red and ripe and juicy it is, and all the shiny black seeds it's got and all. And you could hear the side wheels splashin' like they don't want to wake nobody up, and us, me and the gal, would lay there feelin' like we was rich folks, and them boys on the boats would be playin' sweet as good peach brandy wine. Then the boats would be past, and the lights would be gone from the window, and the music would be goin' too. Kinda like when you watch a gal in a red dress and a wide straw hat goin' past you down a lane with the trees on both sides, and she's plump and juicy and kinda switchin' her tail, 'cause she knows you watchin', and you know she know, and you just stands there and watches till you can't see nothing but the top of her red hat, and then that goes, and you know she done drop behind a hill, I seen me a gal like that once. All I could hear then would be that mobile gal, name of Margaret. She'd be breathin' beside me, and maybe 'bout that time she'd say, "Daddy, you still wake?" And then I'd grunt, "Uh-huh," and drop on off. Gentleman's Jim Trueblood said, "I likes to recall the mobile days." Well, it was like that when I heard Matty Lou say, "Daddy," and I knowed she must have been dreamin' 'bout somebody from the way she said it, and I gets mad wonderin' if it's that boy. I listened to her mumblin' for a while, trying to hear if she calls his name, but she don't, and I remember that they say if you put the hand of a person who's talkin' in his sleep in warm water, he'll say it all, but the water is too cold, and I wouldn't have done it anyway. But I'm realizin' that she's a woman now, when I feels her turn and squirm against me and throw her arm across my neck, up where the cover didn't reach and I was cold. She said something I couldn't understand, like a woman says when she wants to tease and please a man. I knowed then she was grown, and I wondered how many times it done happened, and was it that doggone boy? I moved her arm and it was soft, but it didn't wake her, so I called her, but that didn't wake her neither. Then I turned my back and tried to move away, though there wasn't much room and I could still feel her touchin' me, movin' close to me. Then I must have dropped into the dream. I have to tell you about that dream. I looked at Mr. Norton and stood up, thinking that now was a good time to leave, but he was listening to Trueblood so intensely he didn't see me, and I sat down again, cursing the farmer silently. To hell with his dream! I don't quite remember it all, but I remember that I was looking for some fat meat. I went to the white folks downtown, and they said go see Mr. Broadnax, that he'd give it to me. Well, he lives up on a hill, and I was climbing up there to see him. Seems like that was the highest hill in the world. The more I climbed, the farther away Mr. Broadnax's house seems to get. But finally I do reach there, and I'm so tired and restless to get to the man I goes through the front door. I knows it's wrong, but I can't help it. I goes in, and I'm standing in a big room full of lighted candles and shiny furniture and pictures on the walls and soft stuff on the floor, but I don't see a livin' soul. So I calls his name, but still don't nobody come and don't nobody answer. So I sees a door and goes through that door, and I'm in a big white bedroom like I seen one time when I was a little old boy and went to the big house with my ma. Everything in the room was white, and I'm standing there knowing I got no business in there, but there anyhow. It's a woman's room too. I tries to get out, but I don't find the door, and all around me I can smell woman, can smell it getting stronger all the time. Then I looks over in a corner and sees one of them tall grandfather clocks, and I hears it striking, and the glass door is opening, and a white lady is stepping out of it. She got on a nightgown of soft white silky stuff and nothing else, and she looks straight at me. I don't know what to do. I wants to run, but the only door I see is the one in the clock she's standing in, and anyway, I can't move, and this here clock is keeping up a heap of racket. It's getting faster, and faster all the time. I tries to say something, but I can't. Then she starts to screaming, and I thinks I done gone deaf, 'cause though I can see her mouth working, I don't hear nothing. Yet I can still hear the clock, and I tries to tell her I'm just looking for Mr. Broadnax, but she don't hear me. Instead, she runs up and grabs me around the neck and holds tight, trying to keep me out of the clock. I don't know what to do then, sure enough. I tries to talk to her, and I tries to get away, but she's holding me, and I'm scared to touch her, 'cause she's white. Then I get so scared that I throws her on the bed and tries to break her hold. That woman just seemed to sink out of sight. That their bed was so soft. It's sinking down so far I think it's going to smother both of us. Then swoosh, all of a sudden a flock of little white geese flies out of the bed like they say you see when you go to dig for buried money. Lord, they hadn't no more'n disappeared than I heard a door open, and Mr. Broadnax's voice said, "They just niggers, leave 'em do it." How can he tell this to white men, I thought, when he knows they'll say that all Negroes do such things? I looked at the floor, a red mist of anguish before my eyes, and I can't stop, although I got a feeling something is wrong. I get loose from the woman now, and I'm running for the clock. At first I couldn't get the door open. It had some kind of crinkly stuff like steel wool on the facing. But I gets it open and gets inside, and it's hot and dark in there. I goes up a dark tunnel, up near where the machinery is making all that noise and heat. It's like the power plant they got up to the school. It's burning hot, as if'n the house was caught on fire, and I starts to running, trying to get out. I runs and runs till I should be tired, but ain't tired, but feeling more rested as I runs and running so good it's like flying, and I'm flying and sailing and floating right up over the town, only I'm still in the tunnel. Then way up ahead I sees a bright light like a jack-o'-lantern over a graveyard. It gets brighter and brighter, and I know I got to catch up with it or else. Then all at once I was right up with it, and it burst like a great big electric light in my eyes and scalded me all over. Only it wasn't a scald, but like I was drowning in a lake where the water was hot on the top and had cold numbing currents down under it. Then all at once I'm through it, and I'm relieved to be out and in the cool daylight again. I wakes up intending to tell the old lady 'bout my crazy dream. Morning done come, and it's getting almost light, and there I am looking straight in Mattie Lou's face, and she's beating me and scratching and trembling and shaking and crying all at the same time like she's having a fit. I'm too surprised to move. She's crying, "Daddy, Daddy, oh Daddy," just like that. And all at once I remember the old lady. She's right beside us snoring, and I can't move, 'cause I figures if I moved it would be a sin, and I figures too that if I don't move it maybe ain't no sin, 'cause it happened when I was asleep. Although maybe sometimes a man can look at a little old pigtail gal and see him a whore, you'll know that. Anyway, I realizes that if I don't move the old lady will see me. I don't want that to happen. That would be worse than sin. I'm whispering to Mattie Lou, trying to keep her quiet, and I'm figuring how to get myself out of the fix I'm in without sinning. I almost chokes her. But once a man gets himself in a tight spot like that, there ain't much he can do. It ain't up to him no longer. There I was, trying to get away with all my might, yet having to move without moving. I flew in, but I had to walk out. I had to move without moving. I done thought 'bout it since a heap, and when you think right hard you see that that's the way things is always been with me. That's just about been my life. There was only one way I can figure that I could get out. That was with a knife. But I didn't have no knife, and if y'all ever seen them geld them young boar pigs in the fall, you know I knowed that that was too much to pay to keep from sinning. Everything was happening inside of me like a fight was going on. Then just the very thought of the fix I'm in puts the iron back in me. Then if that ain't bad enough, Mattie Lou can't hold out no longer, and gets to moving herself. First she was trying to push me away, and I'm trying to hold her down to keep from sinning. Then I'm pulling away and shushing her to be quiet so's not to wake her ma, when she grabs holt to me, and holds tight. She didn't want me to go then, and to tell the honest-to-God truth, I found out that I didn't want to go neither. I guess I felt then at that time, and although I been sorry since, just 'bout like that fellow did down in Birmingham. That one what locked hisself in his house and shot at them police until they set fire to the house and burned him up. I was lost. The more wrigglin' and twistin' we done trying to get away, the more we wanted to stay. So like that fellow I stayed. I had to fight it on out to the end. He might have died, but I suspects now that he got a heap of satisfaction before he went. I know there ain't nothing like what I went through. I can't tell how it was. It's like when a real drinking man gets drunk, or when a real sanctified religious woman gets so worked up she jumps out of her clothes, or when a real gambling man keeps on gambling when he's losing. You got hold to it, and you can't let go, even though you want to. Mr. Norton, sir, I said in a choked voice, it's time we were getting back to the campus. You'll miss your appointments. He didn't even look at me. Please, he said, waving his hand in annoyance. Trueblood seemed to smile at me behind his eyes as he looked from the white man to me and continued. I couldn't even let go when I heard Kate scream. It was a scream to make your blood run cold. It sounds like a woman who was watching a team of wild horses run down her baby Chili, and she can't move. Kate's hair is standing up like she done seen a ghost, her gown is hanging open, and the veins in her neck is about to bust, and her eyes, Lord, them eyes. I'm looking up at her from where I'm laying on the pallet with Matty Lou, and I'm too weak to move. She screams and starts to picking up the first thing that comes to her hand and throwing it. Some of them misses me, and some of them hits me, little things and big things. Something cold and strong stinking hits me and wets me and bangs against my head. Something hits the wall, boom-a-loom-a-loom, like a cannonball, and I tries to cover up my head. Kate's talking the unknown tongue, like a wild woman. Wait a minute, Kate, I says. Stop it. Then I hears her stop a second, and I hears her running across the floor, and I twists and looks, and Lord, she done got my double-barrel shotgun. And while she's foaming at the mouth and cocking the gun, she gets her speech. Get up, she says. Hey, no, Kate, I says. Goddamn yo soul to hell. Get up off of my Chili. But woman, Kate, listen. Don't talk, move. Down that thing, Kate, no down up that there's buckshot, woman, buckshot. Down it, I say. I'm gon' blast your soul to hell. You gon' hit Matty Lou. Bah, Matty Lou, you. Bad, it spreads, Kate. Matty Lou. She moves around aiming at me. I done warn you, Jim. Bah. Kate, it was a dream. Listen to me. You the one who listen. Up from there. She jerks the gun and I shuts my eyes. But instead of thunder and lightnin' bustin' me, I hears Matty Lou scream in my ear, Mama, ooh, Mama. I rolls almost over then and Kate hesitates. She looks at the gun, and she looks at us, and she shivers a minute like she got the fever. Then all at once she drops the gun, and zip! Quick as a cat she turns and grabs something off the stove. It catches me like somebody digging into my side with a sharp spade. I can't breathe. She's throwing and talking all at the same time, and when I looks up, man, she's got a iron in her hand. I hollers, no blood, Kate, don't spill no blood. You low-down dog, she says. It's better to spill than to foul. Nah, Kate, things ain't what they pair. Don't make no blood sin on account of no dream sin. Shut up, nigger, you done fouled. But I sees there ain't no use reasoning with her then. I makes up my mind that I'm going to take whatever she gimme. It seems to me that all I can do is take my punishment. I tell myself, maybe if you suffer for it, it will be best. Maybe you owe it to Kate to let her beat you. You ain't guilty, but she thinks you is. You don't want her to beat you, but she thinks she got to beat you. You want to get up, but you too weak to move. I was too. I was frozen to where I was like a young'un what done stuck his lip to a pump handle in the winter-time. I was just like a jaybird that the yellow jackets done stung till he's paralyzed, but still alive in his eyes, and he's watching 'em sting his body to death. It made me seem to go way back a distance in my head, behind my eyes, like I was standing behind a windbreak during a storm. I looks out and sees Kate running toward me, dragging something behind her. I tries to see what it is, 'cause I'm curious 'bout it, and sees her gown catch on the stove, and her hand coming in sight with something in it. I thinks to myself, it's a handle, what she got the handle to. Then I sees her right up on me big. She's swinging her arms like a man swinging a 10-pound sledge, and I sees the knuckles of her hand is bruised and bleedin', and I sees it catching her gown, and I sees her gown go up so I can see her thighs, and I sees how rusty and grey the cold done made her skin, and I sees her bend and straightening up, and I hears her grunt, and I sees her swing, and I smells her sweat, and I knows by the shape of the shining wood what she's got to put on, Me, Lord, yes, I sees it catch on a quilt this time and raise that quilt up and drop it on the floor. Then I sees that axe come free, it shine in, from the sharpening I'd give it a few days before, and man, way back in myself behind that windbreak I says, "Nay, Kate, Lord, Kate, no." Suddenly his voice was so strident that I looked up startled. Trueblood seemed to look straight through Mr. Norton, his eyes glassy. The children paused guiltily at their play, looking toward their father. "I might as well been pleadin' with a switch engine," he went on. "I sees it comin' down. I sees the light catchin' on it. I sees Kate's face all mean, and I tightens my shoulders and stiffens my neck, and I waits. 10,000,000 back to break in years, it seems to me like I waits. I waits so long I remembers all the wrong things I ever done. I waits so long I opens my eyes, and closes 'em and opens my eyes agin, and I sees it fallin'. It's fallin' fast as flops from a 6-foot ox, and while I'm waitin' I feel something wind up inside of me and turn to water. I sees it, Lord, yes, I sees it, and seein' it I twists my head aside. Couldn't help it, Kate has a good aim, but for that I moves. Though I meant to keep still, I moved. Anybody but Jesus Christ hisself would 'a moved. I feel like the whole side of my face is smashed clear off. It hits me like hot lead, so hot that instead of burning me it numbs me. I'm layin' there on the floor, but inside me I'm running round in circles like a dog with his back broke, and back into that numbness with my tail tucked between my legs. I feels like I don't have no skin on my face no more, only the naked bone. But this is the part I don't understand. More'n the pain and numbness I feels relief. Yes, and to get some more of that relief I seems to run out from behind the windbreak again and up to where Kate's standing with the axe, and I opens my eyes and waits. That's the truth. I want some more, and I waits. I sees her swing it looking down on me, and I sees it in the air and I holds my breath. Then all of a sudden I sees it stop like somebody done reached down through the roof and caught it, and I sees her face have a spasm, and I sees the axe fall back of her this time and hit the floor, and Kate spews out some puke, and I close my eyes and waits. I can hear her moaning and stumbling out of the door and falling off the porch into the yard. Then I hears her puking like all her guts is coming up by the roots. Then I looks down and seen blood running all over Matty Lou. It's my blood. My face is bleedin'. That gets me to movin'. I gets up and stumbles out to find Kate, and there she is under the cottonwood tree out there, on her knees, and she's moaning. "What have I done, Lord? What have I done?" She's drooling green stuff and gets to puking agin, and when I goes to touch her it gets worse. I stands there holding my face and trying to keep the blood from flowing, and wonders what on earth is going to happen. I looks up at the morning sun and expects somehow for it to thunder. But it's already bright and clear, and the sun coming up, and the birds is chirping. And I gets more afraid then than if a bolt of lightning had struck me. I yells, "Have mercy, Lord! Lord, have mercy!" and waits. And there's nothing but the clear, bright morning sun. But don't nothing happen, and I knows then that something worse than anything I ever heard 'bout is in store for me. I must 'a stood there stark, stone still for half an hour. I was still standing there when Kate got off her knees and went back into the house. The blood was running all over my clothes and the flies was after me, and I went back inside to try and stop it. When I see Matty Lou stretched out there, I think she's dead. Ain't no colour in her face, and she ain't hardly breathin'. She grey in the face. I tries to help her, but I can't do no good, and Kate won't speak to me nor look at me even, and I thinks maybe she plans to try to kill me agin, but she don't. I'm in such a daze I just sits there the whole time while she bundles up the young uns and takes 'em down the road to Will Nichols. I can see, but I can't do nothing. And I'm still settin' there when she comes back with some women to see 'bout Matty Lou. Won't nobody speak to me, though they looks at me like I'm some new kind of cotton-picking machine. I feels bad. I tells them how it happened in a dream, but they scorns me. I gets plumb out of the house. Then I goes to see the preacher, and even he don't believe me. He tells me to get out o' his house, that I'm the most wicked man he's ever seen, and that I better go confess my sin and make my peace with God. I leaves tryin' to pray, but I can't. I thinks and thinks until I thinks my brain gon' bust, 'bout how I'm guilty and how I ain't guilty. I don't eat nothin', and I don't drink nothin', and can't sleep at night. Finally, one night, way early in the morning, I looks up and sees the stars, and I starts singin'. I don't mean to, I didn't think 'bout it, just start singin'. I don't know what it was, some kind of church song, I guess. All I know is I ends up singin' the blues. I sings me some blues that night ain't never been sang before, and while I'm singin' them blues I makes up my mind that I ain't nobody but myself, and ain't nothin' I can do but let whatever's gonna happen, happen. I made up my mind that I was goin' back home and face Kate, yeah, and face Matty Lou too. When I gets here everybody thinks I done run off. There's a heap of women here with Kate, and I runs 'em out. And when I runs 'em out, I sends the young uns out to play and locks the door and tells Kate and Matty Lou 'bout the dream and how I'm sorry, but that what done happen is done. Happen. How come you don't go on way and leave us, is the first words Kate says to me. Ain't you done enough to me in this chilly? I can't leave you, I says. I'm a man, and man don't leave his family. She says, no, you ain't no man. No man do what you did. I'm still a man, I says. But what you gon' do after it happens, says Kate. After what happens, I says, when your black abomination is birthed to ball your wicked sin before the eyes of God. She must have learned them words from the preacher. Birth, I says. Who birth? Both of us. Me birth and Matty Lou birth. Both of us birth. You dirty, low-down, wicked dog. That like to killed me. I can understand then why Matty Lou won't look at me and won't speak a word to nobody. If you stay, I'm going over and git Aunt Chloe for both of us, Kate says. She says, I don't aim to birth no sin for folks to look at all the rest of my life, and I don't aim for Matty Lou to neither. You see, Aunt Chloe is a midwife, and even weak as I am from this news, I knows I don't want her foolin' with my women folks. That would have been pilin' sin up on top of sin. So I told Kate, nah, that if Aunt Chloe come near this house, I'd kill her, old as she is. I'd have done it too. That settles it. I walks out of the house and leaves 'em here to cry it out between 'em. I wanted to go off by myself aggin, but it don't do no good trying to run off from something like that. It follows you wherever you go. Besides, to get right down to the facts, there wasn't nowhere I could go. I didn't have a cryin' dime. Things got to happening right off. The niggers up at the school come down to chase me off, and that made me mad. I went to see the white folks then, and they gave me help. That's what I don't understand. I'd done the worst thing a man could ever do in his family, and instead of chasing me out of the county, they give me more help than they ever give any other colored man, no matter how good a nigger he was. Except that my wife and daughter won't speak to me, I'm better off than I ever been before. And even if Kate won't speak to me, she took the new clothes I brought her from up in town, and now she's getting some eyeglasses made what she been needin' for so long. But what I don't understand is how I done the worst thing a man can do in his own family, and, 'stead of things gettin' bad, they got better. The niggers up at the school don't like me, but the white folks treats me fine. He was some farmer. As I listened, I had been so torn between humiliation and fascination that to lessen my sense of shame I had kept my attention riveted upon his intense face. That way I did not have to look at Mr. Norton. But now as the voice ended, I sat looking down at Mr. Norton's feet. Out in the yard a woman's hoarse contralto intoned a hymn. Children's voices were raised in playful chatter. I sat bent over, smelling the sharp, dry odor of wood burning in the hot sunlight. I stared at the 2 pairs of shoes before me. Mr. Norton's were white, trimmed with black. They were custom made, and there, beside the cheap tan brogues of the farmer, they had the elegantly slender, well-bred appearance of fine gloves. Finally, someone cleared his throat, and I looked up to see Mr. Norton staring silently into Jim Trueblood's eyes. I was startled. His face had drained of color. With his bright eyes burning into Trueblood's black face, he looked ghostly. Trueblood looked at me questioningly. "Listen to the young guns," he said in embarrassment. "Play in London, bridges falling down." Something was going on which I didn't get. I had to get Mr. Norton away. "Are you all right, sir?" I asked. He looked at me with unseeing eyes. "All right," he said. "Yes, sir. I mean that I think it's time for the afternoon session." I hurried on. He stared at me blankly. I went to him. "Are you sure you're all right, sir?" "Maybe it's the heat," Trueblood said. "You got to be born down here to stand this kind of heat." "Perhaps," Mr. Norton said, "it is the heat. We'd better go." He stood shakily, still staring intently at Trueblood. Then I saw him removing a red Moroccan leather wallet from his coat pocket. The platinum-framed miniature came with it, but he did not look at it this time. "Here," he said, extending a banknote. "Please take this and buy the children some toys for me." Trueblood's mouth fell agape. His eyes widened and filled with moisture as he took the bill between trembling fingers. It was a $100 bill. "I'm ready, young man," Mr. Norton said, his voice a whisper. I went before him to the car and opened the door. He stumbled a bit climbing in, and I gave him my arm. His face was still chalk white. "Drive me away from here," he said in a sudden frenzy. "Away?" "Yes, sir." I saw Jim Trueblood wave as I threw the car into gear. "You bastard," I said under my breath. "You no-good bastard. You get a $100 bill." When I had turned the car and started back, I saw him still standing in the same place. Suddenly Mr. Norton touched me on the shoulder. "I must have a stimulant, young man. A little whiskey." "Yes, sir." "Are you all right, sir?" "A little faint, but a stimulant." His voice trailed off. Something cold formed within my chest. If anything happened to him, Doctor, Bledsoe would blame me. I stepped on the gas, wondering where I could get him some whiskey. Not in the town, that would take too long. There was only one place, the Golden Day. "I'll have you some in a few minutes, sir," I said. "As soon as you can," he said. Chapter 3. I saw them as we approached the short stretch that lay between the railroad tracks and the Golden Day. At first I failed to recognize them. They straggled down the highway in a loose body, blocking the way from the white line to the frazzled weeds that bordered the sun-heated concrete slab. I cursed them silently. They were blocking the road, and Mr. Norton was gasping for breath. Ahead of the radiator's gleaming curve, they looked like a chain gang on its way to make a road. But a chain gang marches single file, and I saw no guards on horseback. As I drew nearer, I recognized the loose, grey shirts and pants worn by the veterans. Damn! They were heading for the Golden Day. "A little stimulant," I heard behind me. "In a few minutes, sir." Up ahead, I saw the one who thought he was a drum major strutting in front, giving orders as he moved energetically in long, hip-swinging strides, a cane held above his head, rising and falling as though in time to music. I slowed the car as I saw him turn to face the men, his cane held at chest level as he shortened the pace. The men continued to ignore him, walking along in a mass, some talking in groups and others talking and gesticulating to themselves. Suddenly, the drum major saw the car and shook his cane baton at me. I blew the horn, seeing the men move over to the side as I nosed the car slowly forward. He held his ground, his legs braced, hands on hips, and, to keep from hitting him, I slammed on the brakes. The drum major rushed past the men toward the car, and I heard The cane banged down upon the hood as he rushed toward me. "Who the hell you think you are, running down the army? Give the countersign. Who's in command of this outfit, you trucking bastards? Was always too big for your britches." "Countersign me? This is General Pershing's car, sir," I said, remembering hearing that. He responded to the name of his wartime commander-in-chief. Suddenly the wild look changed in his eyes, and he stepped back and saluted with stiff precision. Then, looking suspiciously into the back seat, he barked, "Where's the general?" "There," I said, turning and seeing Mr. Norton raising himself weak and white-faced from the seat. "What is it? Why have we stopped?" "The sergeant stopped us, sir." "Sergeant? What sergeant?" He sat up. "Is that you, General?" the vet said, saluting. "I didn't know you were inspecting the front lines today." "I'm very sorry, sir." "What?" Mr. Norton said. "The general's in a hurry," I said quickly. "Sure is," the vet said. "He's got a lot to see. Discipline is bad. Artillery's shot to hell." Then he called to the men walking up the road, "Get the hell out of the general's road. General Pershing's coming through. Make way for General Pershing." He stepped aside and I shot the car across the line to avoid the men and stayed there on the wrong side as I headed for the Golden Day. "Who was that man?" Mr. Norton gasped from the back seat. "A former soldier, sir. A vet. They're all vets, a little shell-shocked. But where is the attendant?" "I don't see one, sir. They're harmless, though. Nevertheless, they should have an attendant. I had to get him there and away before they arrived. This was their day to visit the girls, and the Golden Day would be pretty rowdy." I wondered where the rest of them were. There should have been about 50. Well, I would rush in and get the whiskey and leave. What was wrong with Mr. Norton anyway? Why should he get that upset over Trueblood? I had felt ashamed, and several times I had wanted to laugh, but it had made him sick. Maybe he needed a doctor. Hell, he didn't ask for any doctor. Damn that bastard Trueblood. I would run in, get a pint, and run out again, I thought. Then he wouldn't see the Golden Day. I seldom went there myself, except with some of the fellows when word got out that a new bunch of girls had arrived from New Orleans. The school had tried to make the Golden Day respectable, but the local white folks had a hand in it somehow, and they got nowhere. The best the school could do was to make it hot for any student caught going there. He lay like a man asleep as I left the car and ran into the Golden Day. I wanted to ask him for money, but decided to use my own. At the door, I paused. The place was already full, jammed with vets in loose grey shirts and trousers and women in short, tight-fitting, stiffly starched gingham aprons. The stale beer smell struck like a club through the noise of voices and the jukebox. Just as I got inside the door, a stolid-faced man gripped me by the arm and looked stonily into my eyes. "It will occur at 5:30, he said, looking straight through me. "What? The great all-embracing, absolute armistice, the end of the world," he said. Before I could answer, a small, plump woman smiled into my face and pulled him away. "It's your turn, Doc," she said. "Don't let it happen till after me, and you done been upstairs. How come I always have to come get you?" "No, it is true," he said. "They wirelessed me from Paris this morning. Then, baby, me and you better hurry. There's lots of money I got to make in here before that thing happens. You hold it back a while, will you?" She winked at me as she pulled him through the crowd toward the stairs. I elbowed my way nervously toward the bar. Many of the men had been doctors, lawyers, teachers, civil service, workers. There were several cooks, a preacher, a politician, and an artist. One, very nutty one, had been a psychiatrist. Whenever I saw them, I felt uncomfortable. They were supposed to be members of the professions toward which at various times I vaguely aspired myself, and even though they never seemed to see me, I could never believe that they were really patients. Sometimes it appeared as though they played some vast and complicated game with me and the rest of the school folk, a game whose goal was laughter and whose rules and subtleties I could never grasp. Two men stood directly in front of me, one speaking with intense earnestness, and Johnson hit Jeffries at an angle of 45 degrees from his lower left lateral incisor, producing an instantaneous blocking of his entire thalamic rind, frosting it over like the freezing unit of a refrigerator, thus shattering his autonomous nervous system and rocking the big bricklaying cream puff with extreme hyperspasmic muscular tremors which dropped him dead on the extreme tip of his coccyx, which in turn produced a sharp, traumatic reaction in his sphincter nerve and muscle, and then, my dear colleague, they swept him up, sprinkled him with quicklime, and rolled him away in a barrow. Naturally, there was no other therapy possible. "Excuse me," I said, pushing past. Big Hallie was behind the bar, his dark skin showing through his sweat-wet shirt. "What you saying, schoolboy? I want a double whiskey, Hallie. Put it in something deep so I can get it out of here without spilling it. It's for somebody outside." His mouth shot out. "Hell no." "Why?" I asked, surprised at the anger in his thyroid eyes. "You still up at the school, ain't you?" "Sure. Well, those bastards is trying to close me up again, that's why. You can drink till you blue in the face in here, but I wouldn't sell you enough to spit through your teeth to take outside. But I've got a sick man out in the car." "What car? You never had no car." "The white man's car. I'm driving for him. Ain't you in school?" "He's from the school." "Well, who's sick?" "He is. He too good to come in." "Tell him we don't Jim Crow nobody. But he's sick. He can die. He's important, Hallie, a trustee. He's rich and sick, and if anything happens to him they'll have me packed and on my way home. Can't help it, schoolboy. Bring him inside and he can buy enough to swim in. He can drink out of my own private bottle." He sliced the white heads off a couple of beers with an ivory paddle and passed them up the bar. I felt sick inside. Mr. Norton wouldn't want to come in here. He was too sick, and besides I didn't want him to see the patients and the girls. Things were getting wilder as I made my way out. Supercargo, the white uniformed attendant who usually kept the men quiet, was nowhere to be seen. I didn't like it, for when he was upstairs they had absolutely no inhibitions. I made my way out to the car. What could I tell Mr. Norton? He was lying very still when I opened the door. "Mr. Norton, sir, they refused to sell me whiskey to bring out." He lay very still. Mr. Norton, he lay like a figure of chalk. I shook him gently, feeling dread within me. He barely breathed. I shook him violently, seeing his head wobble grotesquely. His lips parted, bluish, revealing a row of long, slender, amazingly animal-like teeth. "Sir." In a panic I ran back into the golden day, bursting through the noise as through an invisible wall. "Hallie, help me, he's dying." I tried to get through, but no one seemed to have heard me. I was blocked on both sides. They were jammed together. "Hallie!" Two patients turned and looked me in the face, their eyes 2 inches from my nose. "What is wrong with this gentleman, Sylvester?" the tall one said. "A man's dying outside," I said. "Someone is always dying," the other one said. "Yes, and it's good to die beneath God's great tent of sky. He's got to have some whiskey." "Oh, that's different," one of them said, and they began pushing a path to the bar, a last bright drink to keep the anguish down. "Step aside, please." "Schoolboy, you back already?" Hallie said. "Give me some whiskey. He's dying." "I done told you, schoolboy, you better bring him in here. He can die, but I still got to pay my bills. Please, they'll put me in jail. You going to college, figure it out," he said. "You'd better bring the gentleman inside," the one called Sylvester said. "Come, let us assist you." We fought our way out of the crowd. He was just as I left him. "Look, Sylvester, it's Thomas Jefferson." I was just about to say I've long wanted to discourse with him. I looked at them speechlessly. They were both crazy. Or were they joking? "Give me a hand," I said. "Gladly." I shook him. "Mr. Norton." "We'd better hurry if he's to enjoy his drink," one of them said, thoughtfully. We picked him up. He swung between us like a sack of old clothes. "Hurry!" As we carried him toward the golden day, one of the men stopped, suddenly, and Mr. Norton's head hung down, his white hair dragging in the dust. "Gentlemen, this man is my grandfather. But he's white, his name's Norton. I should know my own grandfather. He's Thomas Jefferson and I'm his grandson, on the field nigger side," the tall man said. "Sylvester, I do believe that you're right. I certainly do," he said, staring at Mr. Norton. "Look at those features, exactly like yours, from the identical mold. Are you sure he didn't spit you upon the earth fully clothed?" "No, no, that was my father," the man said earnestly, and he began to curse his father violently as we moved for the door. Hallie was there waiting. Somehow he'd gotten the crowd to quiet down, and a space was cleared in the center of the room. The men came close to look at Mr. Norton. "Somebody bring a chair." "Yeah, let Mr. Eddie sit down. That ain't no Mr. Eddie, man, that's John D. Rockefeller," someone said. "Here's a chair for the Messiah." "Stand back, y'all," Hallie ordered. "Give him some room." Burnside, who had been a doctor, rushed forward and felt for Mr. Norton's pulse. "It's solid. This man has a solid pulse. Instead of beating, it vibrates. That's very unusual. Very—" Someone pulled him away. Hallie reappeared with a bottle and a glass. "Here, some of y'all tilt his head back," and before I could move, a short, pock-marked man appeared, and took Mr. Norton's head between his hands, tilting it at arm's length, and then, pinching the chin gently like a barber about to apply a razor, gave a sharp, swift movement. Pow! Mr. Norton's head jerked like a jabbed punching bag. 5 pale red lines bloomed on the white cheek, glowing like fire beneath translucent stone. I could not believe my eyes. I wanted to run. A woman tittered. I saw several men rush for the door. "Cut it out, you damn fool!" "A case of hysteria," the pockmarked man said quietly. "Get the hell out of the way," Hallie said. "Somebody get that stool pigeon attendant from upstairs. Get him down here, quick. A mere mild case of hysteria," the pock-marked man said as they pushed him away. "Hurry with the drink, Hallie. Here, schoolboy, you hold the glass. This here's brandy I been saving for myself." Someone whispered tonelessly into my ear. "You see, I told you that. It would occur at 5:30. Already the Creator has come." It was the stolid-faced man. I saw Hallie tilt the bottle and the oily amber of brandy sloshing into the glass. Then, tilting Mr. Norton's head back, I put the glass to his lips and poured. A fine brown stream ran from the corner of his mouth, down his delicate chin. The room was suddenly quiet. I felt a slight movement against my hand, like a child's breast when it whimpers at the end of a spell of crying. The fine-veined eyelids flickered. He coughed. I saw a slow red flush creep, then spurt up his neck, spreading over his face. "Hold it under his nose, schoolboy. Let him smell it." I waved the glass beneath Mr. Norton's nose. He opened his pale blue eyes. They seemed watery now in the red flush that bathed his face. He tried to sit up, his right hand fluttering to his chin. His eyes widened, moved quickly from face to face. Then, coming to mine, the moist eyes focused with recognition. "You were unconscious, sir," I said. "Where am I, young man?" he asked wearily. "This is the golden day, sir." "What?" "The golden day. It's a kind of sporting and gambling house," I added reluctantly. "Now give him another drink of brandy," Hallie said. I poured a drink and handed it to him. He sniffed it, closed his eyes, as in puzzlement, then drank. His cheeks filled out like small bellows. He was rinsing his mouth. "Thank you," he said, a little stronger now. "What is this place?" "The Golden Day," said several patients in unison. He looked slowly around him, up to the balcony, with its scrolled and carved wood. A large flag hung lank above the floor. He frowned. "What was this building used for in the past?" he said. "It was a church, then a bank, then it was a restaurant and a fancy gambling house, and now we got it," Hallie explained. "I think somebody said it used to be a jailhouse too. They let us come here once a week to raise a little hell," someone said. "I couldn't buy a drink to take out, sir, so I had to bring you inside," I explained in dread. He looked about him. I followed his eyes and was amazed to see the varied expressions on the patients' faces as they silently returned his gaze. Some were hostile, some cringing, some horrified, some, who when among themselves were most violent, now appeared as submissive as children, and some seemed strangely amused. "Are all of you patients?" Mr. Norton asked. "Me, I just runs the joint," Hallie said. "These here other fellows, we're patients sent here as therapy," a short, fat, very intelligent-looking man said. "But," he smiled, "they send along an attendant, a kind of censor, to see that the therapy fails. You're nuts." "I'm a dynamo of energy. I come to charge my batteries," one of the vets insisted. "I'm a student of history, sir," another interrupted with dramatic gestures. "The world moves in a circle like a roulette wheel. In the beginning, black is on top. In the middle epochs, white holds the odds. But soon, Ethiopia shall stretch forth her noble wings. Then place your money on the black." His voice throbbed with emotion. "Until then, the sun holds no heat. There's ice in the heart of the earth. 2 years from now and I'll be old enough to give my mulatto mother a bath, the half-white bitch," he added, beginning to leap up and down in an explosion of glassy-eyed fury. "Mr. Norton blinked his eyes and straightened up. "I'm a physician. May I take your pulse?" Burnside said, seizing Mr. Norton's wrist. "Don't pay him no mind, mister. He ain't been no doctor in 10 years. They caught him trying to change some blood into money." "I did too," the man screamed. "I discovered it, and John D. Rockefeller stole the formula from me." "Mr. Rockefeller, did you say?" Mr. Norton said. "I'm sure you must be mistaken. What's going on down there?" a voice shouted from the balcony. Everyone turned. I saw a huge black giant of a man, dressed only in white shorts, swaying on the stairs. It was Supercargo, the attendant. I hardly recognized him without his hard-starched white uniform. Usually he walked around threatening the men with a straitjacket which he always carried over his arm, and usually they were quiet and submissive in his presence. But now they seemed not to recognize him and began shouting curses. "How you gon' keep order in the place if you gon' get drunk?" Hallie shouted. "Charlene, Charlene, yeah?" A woman's voice, startling in its carrying power, answered sulkily from a room off the balcony. "I want you to get that stool-pigeoning, joy-killing, nut-crushing bum back in there with you and sober him up. Then get him in his white suit and down here to keep order. We got white folks in the house." A woman appeared on the balcony, drawing a woolly pink robe about her. "Now you listen here, Hallie," she drawled. "I'm a woman. If you want him dressed, you can do it yourself. I don't put on but one man's clothes, and he's in New Orleans. Never mind all that. Get that stool pigeon sober. I want order down there," Supercargo boomed, "and if there's white folks down there, I wants double order." Suddenly there was an angry roar from the men back near the bar, and I saw them rush the stairs. "Get him! Let's give him some order!" "Out of my way!" 5 men charged the stairs. I saw the giant bend and clutch the posts at the top of the stairs with both hands, bracing himself, his body gleaming bare in his white shorts. The little man who had slapped Mr. Norton was in front, and as he sprang up the long flight, I saw the attendant set himself and kick, catching the little man just as he reached the top, hard in the chest, sending him backwards in a curving dive into the midst of the men behind him. Supercargo got set to swing his leg again. It was a narrow stair, and only one man could get up at a time. As fast as they rushed up, the giant kicked them back. He swung his leg, kicking them down, like a fungo hitter batting out flies. Watching him, I forgot Mr. Norton. The golden day was in an uproar. Half-dressed women appeared from the rooms off the balcony. Men hooted and yelled as at a football game. "I want order!" the giant shouted as he sent a man flying down the flight of stairs. "They throwing bottles of liquor," a woman screamed. "Real liquor." "That's a order he don't want," someone said. A shower of bottles and glasses splashing whiskey crashed against the balcony. I saw Supercargo snap suddenly erect and grab his forehead, his face bathed in whiskey. "E!" he cried. "E!" Then I saw him waver, rigid from his ankles upward. For a moment the men on the stairs were motionless, watching him. Then they sprang forward. Supercargo grabbed wildly at the balustrade as they snatched his feet from beneath him and started down. His head bounced against the steps, making a sound like a series of gunshots as they ran, dragging him by his ankles like volunteer firemen running with a hose. The crowd surged forward. Hallie yelled near my ear. I saw the man being dragged toward the center of the room. "Give the bastard some order. Here I'm 45 and he's been acting like he's my old man." "So you like to kick, huh?" a tall man said, aiming a shoe at the attendant's head. The flesh above his right eye jumped out as though it had been inflated. Then I heard Mr. Norton beside me shouting, "No, no, not when he's down. Listen at the white folks," someone said. "He's the white folks, man." Men were jumping upon Supercargo with both feet now, and I felt such an excitement that I wanted to join them. Even the girls were yelling, "Give it to him good. He never pays me. Kill him. Please, y'all, not here. Not in my place. You can't speak your mind when he's on duty." Hell no. Somehow I got pushed away from Mr. Norton and found myself beside the man called Sylvester. "Watch this, schoolboy," he said. "See there, where his ribs are. Bleeding?" I nodded my head. "Now don't move your eyes." I watched the spot as though compelled, just beneath the lower rib and above the hip bone, as Sylvester measured carefully with his toe and kicked as though he were punting a football. Supercargo let out a groan like an injured horse. "Try it, schoolboy, it feels so good." "It gives you relief," Sylvester said. "Sometimes I get so afraid of him I feel that he's inside my head." "There," he said, giving Supercargo another kick. As I watched, a man sprang on Supercargo's chest with both feet and he lost consciousness. They began throwing cold beer on him, reviving him, only to kick him unconscious again. Soon he was drenched in blood and beer. "The bastard's out cold. Throw him out." "No, wait a minute. Give me a hand, somebody." They threw him upon the bar, stretching him out with his arms, folded across his chest like a corpse. "Now let's have a drink." Hallie was slow in getting behind the bar, and they cursed him. "Get back there and serve us, you big sack of fat. Gimme a rye. Up here, funk buster. Shake them sloppy hips." Okay, take it easy," Hallie said, rushing to pour them drinks. "Just put y'all's money where your mouth is." With Supercargo lying helpless upon the bar, the men whirled about like maniacs. The excitement seemed to have tilted some of the more delicately balanced ones too far. Some made hostile speeches at the top of their voices against the hospital, the state, and the universe. The one who called himself a composer was banging away the one wild piece he seemed to know on the out-of-tune piano, striking the keyboard with fists and elbows, and filling in other effects in a bass voice that moaned like a bear in agony. One of the most educated ones touched my arm. He was a former chemist, who was never seen without his shining Phi Beta Kappa key. "The men have lost control," he said through the uproar. "I think you'd better leave." "I'm trying to," I said, "as soon as I can get over to Mr. Norton." Mr. Norton was gone from where I had left him. I rushed here and there through the noisy men, calling his name. When I found him, he was under the stairs. Somehow he had been pushed there by the scuffling, reeling men, and he lay sprawled in the chair, like an aged doll. In the dim light his features were sharp and white, and his closed eyes well-defined lines in a well-tooled face. I shouted his name above the roar of the men, and got no answer. He was out again. I shook him, gently, then roughly, but still no flicker of his wrinkled lids. Then some of The milling men pushed me up against him, and suddenly a mass of whiteness was looming 2 inches from my eyes. It was only his face, but I felt a shudder of nameless horror. I had never been so close to a white person before. In a panic, I struggled to get away. With his eyes closed, he seemed more threatening than with them open. He was like a formless white death. Suddenly appeared before me, a death which had been there all the time and which had now revealed itself in the madness of the golden day. "Stop screaming," a voice commanded, and I felt myself pulled away. It was the short, fat man. I clamped my mouth shut, aware for the first time that the shrill sound was coming from my own throat. I saw the man's face relax as he gave me a wry smile. "That's better," he shouted into my ear. "He's only a man. Remember that. He's only a man." I wanted to tell him that Mr. Norton was much more than that he was a rich white man and in my charge, but the very idea that I was responsible for him was too much for me to put into words. "Let us take him to the balcony," the man said, pushing me toward Mr. Norton's feet. I moved automatically, grasping the thin ankles as he raised the white man by the armpits and backed from beneath the stairs. Mr. Norton's head lolled upon his chest as though he were drunk or dead. The vet started up the steps, still smiling, climbing backwards a step at a time. I had begun to worry about him, whether he was drunk like the rest, when I saw 3 of the girls who had been leaning over the balustrade, watching the brawl, come down to help us carry Mr. Norton up. "Looks like Pops couldn't take it," one of them shouted. "He's high as a Georgia pine. Yeah, I tell you, this stuff Hallie got out here is too strong for white folks to drink. Not drunk, ill," the fat man said. "Go find a bed that's not being used so he can stretch out a while. Show, Daddy, is there any other little favors I can do for you?" "That'll be enough," he said. One of the girls ran up ahead. "Mine's just been changed. Bring him down here," she said. In a few minutes Mr. Norton was lying upon a 3/4 bed, faintly breathing. I watched the fat man bend over him very professionally and feel for his pulse. "You a doctor?" a girl asked. "Not now, I'm a patient. But I have a certain knowledge." "Another one," I thought, pushing him quickly aside. "He'll be all right. Let him come to so I can get him out of here." "You needn't worry, I'm not like those down there, young fellow," he said. "I really was a doctor. I won't hurt him. He's had a mild shock of some kind." We watched him bend over Mr. Norton again, feeling his pulse, pulling back his eyelid. "It's a mild shock," he repeated. "This here golden day is enough to shock anybody," a girl said, smoothing her apron over the smooth, sensuous roll of her stomach. Another brushed Mr. Norton's white hair away from his forehead and stroked it, smiling vacantly. "He's kinda cute," she said, "just like a little white baby." "What kinda old baby?" the small skinny girl asked. "That's the kind, an old baby. You just like white men, Edna. That's all," the skinny one said. Edna shook her head and smiled as though amused at herself. "I do. I just love 'em. Now this one, old as he is, he could put his shoes under my bed any night. Shucks, me, I'd kill an old man like that." "Kill him nothing," Edna said. "Girl, don't you know that all these rich old white men got monkey glands and billy goat balls? These old bastards don't never get enough. They want to have the whole world." The doctor looked at me and smiled. "See, now you're learning all about endocrinology," he said. "I was wrong when I told you that he was only a man. It seems now that he's either part goat or part ape. Maybe he's both." "It's the truth," Edna said. "I used to have me one in Chicago. Now you ain't never been to no Chicago, gal," the other one interrupted. "How you know I ain't? 2 years ago." "Shucks, you don't know nothing. That old white man right there might have him a couple of jackass balls." The fat man raised up with a quick grin. "As a scientist and a physician, I'm forced to discount that," he said. "That is one operation that has yet to be performed." Then he managed to get the girls out of the room. If he should come around and hear that conversation, the vet said, it would be enough to send him off again. Besides, their scientific curiosity might lead them to investigate whether he really does have a monkey gland, and that, I'm afraid, would be a bit obscene. I've got to get him back to the school, I said. All right, he said. I'll do what I can to help you. Go see if you can find some ice. And don't worry, I went out on the balcony, seeing the tops of their heads. They were still milling around, the jukebox baying, the piano thumping, and over at the end of the room, drenched with beer, Supercargo lay like a spent horse upon the bar. Starting down, I noticed a large piece of ice glinting in the remains of an abandoned drink, and seized its coldness in my hot hand and hurried back to the room. The vet sat staring at Mr. Norton, who now breathed with a slightly irregular sound. You were quick, the man said, as he stood and reached for the ice. Swift with the speed of anxiety, he added, as if to himself, hand me that clean towel, there from beside the basin. I handed him one, seeing him fold the ice inside it and apply it to Mr. Norton's face. Is he all right? I said. He will be in a few minutes. What happened to him? I took him for a drive, I said. Did you have an accident or something? No, I said. He just talked to a farmer and the heat knocked him out. Then we got caught in the mob downstairs. How old is he? I don't know, but he's one of the trustees. One of the very first, no doubt, he said, dabbing at the blue-veined eyes. A trustee of consciousness. What was that? I asked. Nothing. There now, he's coming out of it. I had an impulse to run out of the room. I feared what Mr. Norton would say to me, the expression that might come into his eyes. And yet I was afraid to leave. My eyes could not leave the face with its flickering lids. The head moved from side to side in the pale glow of the light bulb, as though denying some insistent voice which I could not hear. Then the lids opened, revealing pale pools of blue vagueness that finally solidified into points that froze upon the vet, who looked down unsmilingly. Men like us did not look at a man like Mr. Norton in that manner, and I stepped hurriedly forward. He's a real doctor, sir, I said. I'll explain, the vet said. Get a glass of water. I hesitated. He looked at me firmly. Get the water, he said, turning, to help Mr. Norton to sit up. Outside I asked Edna for a glass of water, and she led me down the hall to a small kitchen, drawing it for me from a green old-fashioned cooler. I got some good liquor, baby, if you want to give him a drink, she said. This will do, I said. My hands trembled so that the water spilled. When I returned, Mr. Norton was sitting up unaided, carrying on a conversation with the vet. Here's some water, sir, I said, extending the glass. He took it. Thank you, he said. Not too much, the vet cautioned. Your diagnosis is exactly that of my specialist, Mr. Norton said, and I went to several fine physicians before one could diagnose it. How did you know? I too was a specialist, the vet said. But how? Only a few men in the whole country possess the knowledge. Then one of them is an inmate of a semi-madhouse, the vet said. But there's nothing mysterious about it. I escaped for a while. I went to France with the Army Medical Corps and remained there after the armistice to study and practice. Oh, yes. And how long were you in France? Mr. Norton asked. Long enough, he said. Long enough to forget some fundamentals, which I should never have forgotten. What fundamentals? Mr. Norton said. What do you mean? The vet smiled and cocked his head. Things about life. Such things as most peasants and folk peoples almost always know through experience, though seldom through conscious thought. Pardon me, sir, I said to Mr. Norton, but now that you feel better, shouldn't we go? Not just yet, he said. Then to the doctor, I'm very interested. What happened to you? A drop of water caught in one of his eyebrows, glittered like a chip of active diamond. I went over and sat on a chair. Damn, this vet to hell. Are you sure you would like to hear? The vet asked. Why, of course, then perhaps the young fellow should go downstairs and wait. The sound of shouting and destruction welled up from below as I opened the door. No, perhaps you should stay, the fat man said. Perhaps had I overheard some of what I'm about to tell you when I was a student up there on the hill, I wouldn't be the casualty that I am. Sit down, young man, Mr. Norton ordered. So you were a student at the college, he said to the vet. I sat down again, worrying about Dr. Bledsoe as the fat man told Mr. Norton of his attending college, then becoming a physician and going to France during the World War. Were you a successful physician? Mr. Norton said. Fairly so. I performed a few brain surgeries that won me some small attention. Then why did you return? Nostalgia, the vet said. Then what on earth are you doing here in this, Mr. Norton said, with your ability? Ulcers, the fat man said. That's terribly unfortunate, but why should ulcers stop your career? Not really, but I learned along with the ulcers that my work could bring me no dignity, the vet said. Now you sound bitter, Mr. Norton said, just as the door flew open. A brown-skinned woman with red hair looked in. How's white folks? Making out, she said, staggering inside. White folks, baby, you done come, too. You want a drink? Not now, Hester, the vet said. He's still a little weak. He show looks it. That's how come he needs a drink. Put some iron in his blood. Now, Hester. Okay, but what y'all doing looking like you at a funeral? Don't you know this is the golden day? She staggered toward me, belching, elegantly and reeling. Just look at y'all. Here schoolboy looks like he's scared to death, and white folks here is acting like y'all two strange poodles. Be happy, y'all. I'm going down and get Hallie to send you up some drinks. She patted Mr. Norton's cheek as she went past, and I saw him turn a glowing red. Be happy, white folks. Aha! The vet laughed. You're blushing, which means that you're better. Don't be embarrassed. Hester is a great humanitarian, a therapist of generous nature and great skill, and the possessor of a healing touch. Her catharsis is absolutely tremendous. Ha. You do look better, sir, I said, anxious to get out of the place. I could understand the vet's words, but not what they conveyed, and Mr. Norton looked as uncomfortable as I felt. The one thing which I did know was that the vet was acting toward the white man with a freedom which could only bring on trouble. I wanted to tell Mr. Norton that the man was crazy, and yet I received a fearful satisfaction from hearing him talk as he had to a white man. With the girl it was different. A woman usually got away with things a man never could. I was wet with anxiety, but the vet talked on, ignoring the interruption. Rest, he said, fixing Mr. Norton with his eyes. The clocks are all set back, and the forces of destruction are rampant down below. They might suddenly realize that you are what you are, and then your life wouldn't be worth a piece of bankrupt stock. You would be cancelled, perforated, voided, become the recognized magnet attracting loose screws. Then what would you do? Such men are beyond money, and with supercargo down, out, like a felled ox, they know nothing of value. To some, you are the great white father, to others the lyncher of souls, but for all, you are confusion, come even into the golden day. What are you talking about? I said, thinking lyncher. He was getting wilder than the men downstairs. I didn't dare look at Mr. Norton, who made a sound of protest. The vet frowned. It is an issue which I can confront only by evading it. An utterly stupid proposition, and these hands so lovingly trained to master a scalpel yearn to caress a trigger. I returned to save life, and I was refused, he said. 10 men in masks drove me out from the city at midnight and beat me with whips for saving a human life, and I was forced to the utmost degradation because I possessed skilled hands and the belief that my knowledge could bring me dignity, not wealth, only dignity, and other men health. Then suddenly he fixed me with his eyes. And now, do you understand? What? I said. What you've heard. I don't know why. I said, I really think it's time we left. You see, he said, turning to Mr. Norton, he has eyes and ears and a good distended African nose, but he fails to understand the simple facts of life. Understand? Understand? It's worse than that. He registers with his senses but short-circuits his brain. Nothing has meaning. He takes it in, but he doesn't digest it. Already he is, well, bless my soul, behold, a walking zombie. Already he's learned to repress not only his emotions but his humanity. He's invisible, a walking personification of the negative, the most perfect achievement of your dreams, sir, the mechanical man. Mr. Norton looked amazed. Tell me, the vet said, suddenly calm. Why have you been interested in the school, Mr. Norton? Out of a sense of my destined role, Mr. Norton said shakily. I felt, and I still feel, that your people are in some important manner tied to my destiny. What do you mean, destiny? The vet said. Why, the success of my work, of course. I see. And would you recognize it if you saw it? Why, of course I would, Mr. Norton said indignantly. I've watched it grow each year I've returned to the campus. Campus? Why the campus? It is there that my destiny is being made. The vet exploded with laughter. The campus, what a destiny. He stood and walked around the narrow room, laughing. Then he stopped as suddenly as he had begun. You will hardly recognize it, but it is very fitting that you came to the golden day with the young fellow, he said. I came out of illness, or rather he brought me, Mr. Norton said. Of course, but you came, and it was fitting. What do you mean? Mr. Norton said with irritation. A little child shall lead them, the vet said with a smile. But seriously, because you both fail to understand what is happening to you. You cannot see or hear or smell the truth of what you see, and you looking for destiny. It's classic. And the boy, this automaton, he was made of the very mud of the region, and he sees far less than you. Poor stumblers, neither of you can see the other. To you he is a mark on the scorecard of your achievement, a thing and not a man, a child or even less, a black, amorphous thing. And you, for all your power, are not a man to him, but a god, a force. Mr. Norton stood abruptly. Let us go, young man, he said angrily. No, listen. He believes in you as he believes in the beat of his heart. He believes in that great false wisdom taught slaves and pragmatists alike, that white is right. I can tell you his destiny. He'll do your bidding, and for that his blindness is his chief asset. He's your man, friend, your man and your destiny. Now the two of you descend the stairs into chaos and get the hell out of here. I'm sick of both of you pitiful obscenities. Get out before I do you both the favor of bashing in your heads. I saw his motion toward the big white pitcher on the washstand and stepped between him and Mr. Norton, guiding Mr. Norton swiftly through the doorway. Looking back, I saw him leaning against the wall, making a sound that was a blending of laughter and tears. Hurry. The man is as insane as the rest, Mr. Norton said. Yes, sir, I said, noticing a new note in his voice. The balcony was now as noisy as the floor below. The girls and drunken vets were stumbling about with drinks in their hands. Just as we went past an open door, Edna saw us and grabbed my arm. "Where you taking white folks?" she demanded. "Back to school," I said, shaking her off. "You don't want to go up there, white folks, baby," she said. I tried to push past her. "I ain't lying," she said. "I'm the best little homemaker in the business." "Okay, but please let us alone," I pleaded. "You'll get me into trouble." We were going down the stairs into the milling men now, and she started to scream, "Pay me then! If he's too good for me, let him pay!" And before I could stop her, she had pushed Mr. Norton, and both of us were stumbling swiftly down the stairs. I landed against a man who looked up with the anonymous familiarity of a drunk and shoved me hard away. I saw Mr. Norton spin past as I sank farther into the crowd. Somewhere I could hear the girl screaming and Hallie's voice yelling, Hey, hey, hey now. Then I was aware of fresh air and saw that I was near the door and pushed my way free and stood panting and preparing to plunge back for Mr. Norton, when I heard Hallie calling, "Make way, y'all," and saw him piloting Mr. Norton to the door. "Whew," he said, releasing the white man and shaking his huge head. "Thanks, Hallie," I said, and got no further. I saw Mr. Norton, his face pale again, his white suit rumpled, topple and fall, his head scraping against the screen of the door. "Hey!" I opened the door and raised him up. "God damn it, out again," Hallie said. "How come you bring this white man here, schoolboy? Is he dead?" "Dead," he said, stepping back indignantly. "He can't die. What'll I do, Hallie?" "Not in my place he can't die," he said, kneeling. Mr. Norton looked up. "No one is dead or dying," he said acidly. "Remove your hands." Hallie fell away, surprised. "I show am glad." "You show you all right? I thought show you was dead this time. For God's sake, be quiet." I exploded nervously. "You should be glad that he's all right." Mr. Norton was visibly angry now, a raw place showing on his forehead, and I hurried ahead of him to the car. He climbed in unaided, and I got under the wheel, smelling the heated odor of mints and cigar smoke. He was silent as I drove away. Chapter 4. The wheel felt like an alien thing in my hands as I followed the white line of the highway. Heat rays from the late afternoon sun arose from the grey concrete, shimmering like the weary tones of a distant bugle blown upon still midnight air. In the mirror I could see Mr. Norton staring out vacantly upon the empty fields, his mouth stern, his white forehead livid where it had scraped the screen. And seeing him I felt the fear bald coldly within me unfold. What would happen now? What would the school officials say? In my mind I visualized Dr. Bledsoe's face when he saw Mr. Norton. I thought of the glee certain folks at home would feel if I were expelled. Tatlock's grinning face danced through my mind. What would the white folks think who'd sent me to college? Was Mr. Norton angry at me? In the golden day he had seemed more curious than anything else, until the vet had started talking wild. Damn True Blood, it was his fault. If we hadn't sat in the sun so long, Mr. Norton would not have needed whiskey, and I wouldn't have gone to the golden day. And why would the vets act that way with a white man in the house? I headed the car through the red brick campus gateposts with a sense of cold apprehension. Now even the rows of neat dormitories seemed to threaten me, the rolling lawns appearing as hostile as the grey highway with its white dividing line. As of its own compulsion, the car slowed as we passed the chapel with its low sweeping eaves. The sun shone coolly through the avenue of trees, dappling the curving drive. Students strolled through the shade, down a hill of tender grass toward the brick-red stretch of tennis courts. Far beyond, players in whites showed sharp against the red of the courts surrounded by grass, a gay vista washed by the sun. In the brief interval I heard a cheer arise. My predicament struck me like a stab. I had a sense of losing control of the car and slammed on the brakes in the middle of the road, then apologized and drove on. Here within this quiet greenness I possessed the only identity I had ever known, and I was losing it. In this brief moment of passage, I became aware of the connection between these lawns and buildings and my hopes and dreams. I wanted to stop the car and talk with Mr. Norton, to beg his pardon for what he had seen, to plead and show him tears, unashamed tears like those of a child before his parent, to denounce all we'd seen and heard, to assure him that far from being like any of the people we had seen, I hated them, that I believed in the principles of the founder with all my heart and soul, and that I believed in his own goodness and kindness in extending the hand of his benevolence to helping us poor, ignorant people out of the mire and darkness. I would do his bidding and teach others to rise up as he wished them to, teach them to be thrifty, decent, upright citizens, contributing to the welfare of all, shunning all, but the straight and narrow path that he and the founder had stretched before us. If only he were not angry with me, if only he would give me another chance. Tears filled my eyes, and the walks and buildings flowed and froze. For a moment in mist, glittering as in winter when rain froze on the grass and foliage and turned the campus into a world of whiteness, waiting and bending both trees and bushes with fruit of crystal. Then, in the twinkling of my eyes, it was gone, and the here and now of heat and greenness returned. If only I could make Mr. Norton understand what the school meant to me. "Shall I stop at your rooms, sir?" I said, "or shall I take you to the administration building?" "Dr. Bledsoe might be worried. To my rooms, then bring Dr. Bledsoe to me," he answered tersely. "Yes, sir." In the mirror, I saw him dabbing gingerly at his forehead with a crinkled handkerchief. "You'd better send the school physician to me also," he said. I stopped the car in front of a small building with white pillars like those of an old plantation manor house, got out and opened the door. "Mr. Norton, please, sir, I'm sorry, He looked at me sternly, his eyes narrowed, saying nothing. "I didn't know. Please, send Dr. Bledsoe to me," he said, turning away and swinging up the gravelled path to the building. I got back into the car and drove slowly to the administration building. A girl waved gaily as I passed, a bunch of violets in her hand. Two teachers in dark suits talked decorously beside a broken fountain. The building was quiet. Going upstairs, I visualized Dr. Bledsoe, with his broad, globular face that seemed to take its form from the fat pressing from the inside, which, as air pressing against the membrane of a balloon, gave it shape and buoyancy. Old Buckethead, some of the fellows called him, I never had. He had been kind to me from the first, perhaps because of the letters which the school superintendent had sent to him when I arrived. But more than that, he was the example of everything I hoped to be, influential with wealthy men all over the country, consulted in matters concerning the race, a leader of his people, the possessor of not one but two Cadillacs, a good salary and a soft, good-looking and creamy-complexioned wife. What was more, while black and bald and everything white folks poked fun at, he had achieved power and authority, had, while black and wrinkle-headed, made himself of more importance in the world than most Southern white men. They could laugh at him, but they couldn't ignore him. "He's been looking all over for you," the girl at the desk said. When I walked in, he looked up from the telephone and said, "Never mind, he's here now," and hung up. "Where's Mr. Norton?" he demanded, excitedly. "Is he all right?" "Yes, sir. I left him at his rooms and came to drive you down. He wishes to see you. Is anything wrong?" he said, getting up hurriedly and coming around the desk. I hesitated. "Well, is there?" The panicky beating of my heart seemed to blur my vision. "Not now, sir." "Now? What do you mean?" "Well, sir, he had some kind of fainting spell." "Oh, my God. I knew something was wrong. Why didn't you get in touch with me?" He grabbed his black Homburg, starting for the door. "Come on." I followed him, trying to explain. "He's all over it now, sir, and we were too far away for me to phone." "Why did you take him so far?" he said, moving with great bustling energy. "But I drove him where he wanted to go, sir." "Where was that?" "Back of the slave quarter section," I said with dread. "The quarters? Boy, are you a fool. Didn't you know better than to take a trustee out there?" "He asked me to, sir." We were going down the walk now through the spring air, and he stopped to look at me with exasperation, as though I'd suddenly told him black was white. "Damn what he wants," he said, climbing in the front seat beside me. "Haven't you the sense God gave a dog? We take these white folks where we want them to go. We show them what we want them to see. Don't you know that? I thought you had some sense." Reaching Rab Hall, I stopped the car, weak with bewilderment. "Don't sit there," he said. "Come with me." Just inside the building I got another shock. As we approached a mirror, Dr. Bledsoe stopped and composed his angry face like a sculptor, making it a bland mask, leaving only the sparkle of his eyes to betray the emotion that I had seen only a moment before. He looked steadily at himself. For a moment, then we moved quietly down the silent hall and up the stairs. A co-ed sat at a graceful table stacked with magazines. Before a great window stood a large aquarium containing colored stones and a small replica of a feudal castle surrounded by goldfish that seemed to remain motionless, despite the fluttering of their lacy fins, a momentary motionful suspension of time. "Is Mr. Norton in his room?" he said to the girl. "Yes, sir, Dr. Bledsoe, sir," she said. "He said to tell you to come in when you got here." Pausing at the door, I heard him clear his throat, then rap softly upon the panel with his fist. "Mr. Norton," he said, his lips already a smile, and at the answer I followed him inside. It was a large light room. Mr. Norton sat in a huge wing chair with his jacket off. A change of clothing lay on the cool bedspread, above a spacious fireplace. An oil portrait of the founder looked down at me remotely, benign, sad, and in that hot instant profoundly disillusioned. Then a veil seemed to fall. "I've been worried about you, sir," Dr. Bledsoe said. "We expected you at the afternoon session. Now it's beginning, I thought. Now." And suddenly he rushed forward. "Mr. Norton, your head!" he cried, a strange grandmotherly concern in his voice. "What happened, sir?" "It's nothing." Mr. Norton's face was immobile, a mere scratch. Dr. Bledsoe whirled around, his face outraged. "Get the doctor over." "Here," he said. "Why didn't you tell me that Mr. Norton had been injured?" "I've already taken care of that, sir," I said softly, seeing him whirl back. Mr. Norton, I'm so sorry," he crooned. "I thought I had sent you a boy who was careful, a sensible young man. Why, we've never had an accident before. Never, not in 75 years. I assure you, sir, that he shall be disciplined, severely disciplined." "But there was no automobile accident," Mr. Norton said kindly, "nor was the boy responsible. You may send him away, we won't need him now." My eyes suddenly filled. I felt a wave of gratitude at his words. "Don't be kind, sir," Dr. Bledsoe said. "You can't be soft with these people. We mustn't pamper them. An accident to a guest of this college while he is in the charge of a student is without question the student's fault. That's one of our strictest rules. Then to me, return to your dormitory and remain there until further notice." "But it was out of my control, sir," I said, just as Mr. Norton said. "I'll explain, young man," Mr. Norton said with a half-smile. "Everything will be explained." "Thank you, sir," I said, seeing Dr. Bledsoe looking at me with no change of expression. On second thought he said, "I want you to be in chapel this evening, understand me, sir?" "Yes, sir." I opened the door with a cold hand, bumping into the girl who had been at the table when we went inside. "I'm sorry," she said. "Looks like you have old Buckethead kind of mad." I said nothing as she walked beside me expectantly. A red sun cast its light upon the campus as I started for my dormitory. "Will you take a message to my boyfriend for me?" she said. "Who is he?" I said, trying hard to conceal my tension and fear. "Jack Maston," she said. "Okay, he's in the room next to mine." "That's swell," she said with a big smile. "The dean put me on duty, so I missed him this afternoon. Just tell him that I said the grass is green." "What? The grass is green? It's our secret code, he'll understand." "The grass is green," I said. "That's it." "Thank you, lover," she said. I felt like cursing as I watched her hurrying back into the building, hearing her flat-heeled shoes crunching the gravelled walk. Here she was, playing with some silly secret code at the very minute my fate for the rest of my life was being decided. The grass was green and they'd meet and she'd be sent home pregnant, but even so, in less disgrace than I. If only I knew what they were saying about me. Suddenly I had an idea and ran after her, into the building and up the stairs. In the hall fine dust played in a shaft of sunlight, stirred by her hurried passing, but she had disappeared. I had thought to ask her to listen at the door and tell me what was said. I gave it up. If she were discovered, I'd have that on my conscience too. Besides, I was ashamed for anyone to know of my predicament. It was too stupid to be believed. Down the long length of the wide hall I heard someone unseen skipping down the stairs, singing. A girl's sweet, hopeful voice. I left quietly and hurried to my dorm. I lay in my room with my eyes closed, trying to think. The tension gripped my insides. Then I heard someone coming up the hall and stiffened. Had they sent for me already? Nearby a door opened and closed, leaving me as tense as ever. To whom could I turn for help? I could think of no one. No one to whom I could even explain what had happened at the Golden Day. Everything was upset inside me, and Dr. Bledsoe's attitude toward Mr. Norton was the most confusing of all. I dared not repeat what he'd said for fear that it would lessen my chances of remaining in school. It just wasn't true. I had misunderstood. He couldn't have said what I thought he had said. Hadn't I seen him approach white visitors too often with his hat in hand, bowing humbly and respectfully? Hadn't he refused to eat in the dining hall with white guests of the school, entering only after they had finished and then refusing to sit down but remaining standing, his hat in his hand, while he addressed them eloquently, then leaving with a humble bow? Hadn't he? Hadn't he? I had seen him too often as I peeped through the door between the dining room and the kitchen, I myself, and wasn't his favorite spiritual, live a humble? And in the chapel on Sunday evenings upon the platform, hadn't he always taught us to live content in our place in 1,000 unambiguous words? He had, and I had believed him. I had believed without question his illustrations of the good which came of following the Founder's path. It was my affirmation of life, and they couldn't send me away for something I didn't do. They simply couldn't. But that vet, he was so crazy that he corrupted sane men. He had tried to turn the world inside out. God damn him. He had made Mr. Norton angry. He had no right to talk to a white man as he had, not with me to take the punishment. Someone shook me and I recoiled, my legs moist and trembling. It was my roommate. "What the hell, roomie," he said. "Let's go to chow." I looked at his confident mug. He was going to be a farmer. "I don't have an appetite," I said with a sigh. "Okay now," he said. "You can try to kid me, but don't say I didn't wake you." "No," I said. "Who you expecting, a broad-butt gal with ball-bearing hips?" "No," I said. "You'd better stop that, roomie," he grinned. "It'll ruin your health, make you a moron. You ought to take you a gal and show her how the moon rises over all that green grass on the Founder's grave, man." "Go to hell," I said. He left laughing, opening the door to the sound of many footsteps. From the hall, supper time, the sound of departing voices. Something of my life seemed to retreat with them into a grey distance, moiling. Then a knock sounded at the door, and I sprang up, my heart tense. A small student wearing a freshman's cap stuck his head in the door, shouting, "Dr. Bledsoe said he wants to see you down at Rab Hall." And then he was gone before I could question him, his footsteps thundering down the hall as he raced to dinner before the last bell sounded. Mr. Norton's door. I stopped with my hand on the knob, mumbling a prayer. "Come in, young man," he said to my knock. He was dressed in fresh linen, the light falling upon his white hair as upon silk floss. A small piece of gauze was plastered to his forehead. He was alone. "I'm sorry, sir," I apologized, "but I was told that Dr. Bledsoe wanted to see me here." "That's correct," he said, "but Dr. Bledsoe had to leave. You'll find him in his office after chapel." "Thank you, sir," I said, and turned to go. He cleared his throat. Behind me, "Young man," I turned hopefully. "Young man, I have explained to Dr. Bledsoe that you were not at fault. I believe he understands. I was so relieved that at first I could only look at him, a small, silken-haired, white-suited St. Nicholas seen through misty eyes. "I certainly do, thank you, sir," I managed finally. He studied me silently, his eyes slightly narrowed. "Will you need me this evening, sir?" I asked. "No, I won't be needing the machine. Business is taking me away, sooner than I expected. I leave late tonight. I could drive you to the station, sir," I said hopefully. "Thank you, but Dr. Bledsoe has already arranged it." "Oh," I said with disappointment. I had hoped that by serving him the rest of the week I could win back his esteem. Now I would not have the opportunity. "Well, I hope you have a pleasant trip, sir," I said. "Thank you," he said, suddenly smiling. "And maybe next time you come, I'll be able to answer some of the questions you asked me this afternoon." "Questions?" His eyes narrowed. "Yes, sir, about your fate," I said. "Ah, yes, he said. "And I intend to read Emerson too. Very good. Self-reliance is a most worthy virtue. I shall look forward, with the greatest of interest, to learning your contribution to my fate." He motioned me toward the door. "And don't forget to see Dr. Bledsoe." I left somewhat reassured, but not completely. I still had to face Dr. Bledsoe, and I had to attend chapel. Chapter 5. At the sound of vespers, I moved across the campus with groups of students, walking slowly, their voices soft in the mellow dusk. I remember the yellowed globes of frosted glass making lacy silhouettes on the gravel and the walk of the leaves and branches above us as we moved slow through the dusk so restless with scents of lilac, honeysuckle and verbena, and the feel of spring greenness. And I recall the sudden arpeggios of laughter lilting across the tender springtime grass, gay-welling, far-floating, fluent, spontaneous, a bell-like feminine fluting, then suppressed, as though snuffed swiftly and irrevocably beneath the quiet solemnity of the vespered air now vibrant with sombre chapel bells. Dong, dong, dong. Above the decorous walking around me, sounds of footsteps leaving the verandas of far-flung buildings and moving toward the walks and over the walks to the asphalt drives lined with whitewashed stones, those cryptic messages for men and women, boys and girls heading quietly toward where the visitors waited, and we moving not in the mood of worship but of judgment, as though even here in the filtering dusk, here beneath the deep indigo sky, here alive with looping swifts and darting moths, here in the here-ness of the night not yet lighted by the moon, that looms blood-red behind the chapel like a fallen sun, its radiance shedding not upon the here dusk of twittering bats, nor on the there night of cricket and whippoorwill, but focused short-rayed upon our place of convergence, and we drifting forward with rigid motions, limbs stiff and voices now silent, as though on exhibit even in the dark, and the moon a white man's bloodshot eye. And I move more rigid than all the others with a sense of judgment, the vibrations of the chapel bells stirring the depths of my turmoil, moving toward its nexus with a sense of doom. And I remember the chapel with its sweeping eaves, long and low as though risen bloody from the earth, like the rising moon, vine-covered and earth-colored, as though more earth-sprung than man-sprung. And my mind rushing for relief away from the spring dusk and flower scents, away from the time scene of the crucifixion to the time mood of the birth, from spring dusk and vespers to the high, clear, lucid moon of winter and snow glinting upon the dwarfed pines, where instead of the bells, the organ and the trombone choir speak carols to the distances, drifted with snow, making of the night air a sea of crystal water, lapping the slumbering land to the farthest reaches of sound, for endless miles, bringing the new dispensation even to the golden day, even unto the house of madness. But in the here-ness of dusk I am moving toward the doom-like bells, through the flowered air, beneath the rising moon. Into the doors and into the soft lights I go, silently, past the rows of puritanical benches, straight and tortuous, finding that to which I am assigned, and bending my body to its agony. There, at the head of the platform with its pulpit and rail of polished brass, are the banked and pyramided heads of the student choir, faces composed and stolid above, uniforms of black and white, and above them, stretching to the ceiling, the organ pipes looming, a Gothic hierarchy of dull gilded gold.